All right, we are live. Welcome to the second in a row. I took a little break over the holiday season, but this is a back-to-back Tuesday night lives, and happy to be here, man. We got a good show. We're going to talk a little old school fishing. Just going to talk about how things have changed over the years in bass fishing, and why we still enjoy it, and why it's there's different ways to enjoy fishing, and it's all the same in one way or another. But before we get into the show, just got to thank the sponsors that have supported the channel. Baitworks has been with us for a while, and we will do a $25 Baitworks gift card sometime during the live stream. Probably just do that the live stream randomizer deal, do it that way. Or we might sneak something in there, who knows. You just have to stay tuned. And also Bass Braid. Bass Braid's been with us for about a month and a half or so, something like that. This is a premium 8-strand braid. They use the finest fibers available at the current time, and it's a really good price point. I've been using this braid now for I got it in the fall. I kind of spooled up my frog rod and my punching rod and my topwater rod with this, so I was able to use it for about a month or so, and then I've got some on my spinning rod right now. So check this stuff out. 3-pound fishing. Sniping braid is under the same umbrella. Both of these braids are under the same company, but sniping braid's kind of geared towards crappie fishing. They got a lot of smaller tests. They've got the high vis yellow. They got some smoke color stuff, and then the bass braid's just your traditional moss green. But you can get online, Google this. We were just talking about Google, but look it up. Really good stuff and really good price point. So let's get into the program. Chris, it's good to have you on here, man. Like I was telling you before we got up here that somebody reached out to me via Facebook, and they sent me one of your most recent videos, and they said, "Hey, man, you should reach out to this dude and see if he's available for a live stream." And I watched the video, and I like what you're doing as far as just kind of keeping it real, talking about what's on your mind. I think that's I try to do that a little bit on my channel too. I like to talk about, just what you're feeling. If you're feeling something, hit record, talk about it a little bit, because chances are, if you're feeling it, there's a bunch of other people out there in the social media universe that's feeling the same thing.
Yeah, so that's been the most interesting part that I found is it took me forever to finally start doing it. I was for like 3 or 4 years going, man, I need to just do something. I think that'd be fun. And I kept trying to create these videos and edit them and figure out how to make them real perfect. And finally one day I watched another creator that just said, hey, look, man, he was just giving advice on trying to do a YouTube. And he said, just make a video, put it out there, and then you'll figure it out from there. So one day I was sitting around here and I just burned one off and threw it out there. And here we are. It was kind of crazy. So, and over this I've really only been doing it for about a year, since really early that last February. And what was really interesting is it seems like the harder I try to make a video and really sit down and make a thought and go, hey, I'm going to do this on this, I get less response. I've really had the ones that I'm walking along and something pops in my head or something happens while I'm out there on the water. And man, I just sit down and throw one down. Everybody loves it. And so I just kind of made up my mind that's how I was going to keep it going. It's just kind of winging it. And so far I'm having a great time with it. It's been amazing as truthfully, anglers like myself, they tend to be like, there's none of us left and this is the end of the world. But what I found is there's a whole bunch of us out there. And the majority, even tech guys we're all the same when you really get down to it. And that part's been really, I guess for me, just a lot of hope, it's because there for a little while I was starting to go, man, I guess this thing's all over with, but fishing as I knew it. But as far as I'm concerned, it's alive and well, and I'm having a blast. So
heck, I would say the majority of fishermen, and we're obviously we're talking about the technology and all that's going on out there, but heck, I would say the majority of fishermen don't care about the tech. Fishermen, the folks that buy a fishing license year in and year out, don't care about all the tech. They just want to go out and
tournament fishermen versus people that aren't fishing tournament.
Absolutely.
Majority of the people don't fish tournaments. We all fish tournaments, so we're in this kind of bubble, like we think the rest of the whole bass fishing world is tournament fishermen, and
we're living in our world,
No, we're a small percentage of it.
Yeah, so small. And I will tell you though, it's really interesting to me. And I mean, I got a lot of friends, and they've all got the technology. I mean, I'm talking guys with old beat up boats and stuff. And I guess for me, I'm just going, hey, they want to use it too. They're okay with learning, but they're also not kind of reached this obsessive point that this group of anglers out there about, they're not sitting around having all these discussions like we are. They're using what they got. They bought it. They use it. They have so many of them talk to me about it. Like, I use it some, I don't some. Sometimes it's cool. Sometimes, it's whatever. As long as I get to go catch some fish or go to the lake, I'm happy. And
Right.
It's so interesting to talk to so many people like that. And what I found is there's really such the hype that we're all seeing and paying attention to is a really small percentage of people. And as we all know, anything in the world is kind of like that. You got all the ones doing creating all the noise, but there's really only 4 of them, and there's 8 million of the rest of us, kind of thing. So this live scope and the technology thing, in my opinion, has just been that. Really, I really believe that.
What's that old adage? A squeaky wheel gets grease, right? Like,
Yes.
we hear about all the noise, and the noise right now in the industry is what's going on with technology.
Yep.
And we were talking before we're getting on, like my dad, he's fought it for years, and he's got all the technology that I have on my boat.
Yep.
We have pretty well the same setup, minus a couple years of generations of certain grass, but I find it just as relaxing to go to the lake and go throw a frog or punch a mat and turn all that crap off. But I still love the technology part of it. Like, I still love learning how fish act and what we were missing for all those years. So I see the positives and negatives of all of it. So
yeah, a person has to be able to stand in every shoe. And my wife is a youth director for the state of Arkansas, and has been for 10, 11 years. So I've spent hours and hours in the boats with these kids. And the truth of the matter is people want to harp on these young kids and stuff. But I mean, I look at it and go, I know what I learned, but that's what I learned. I grew up as oddly enough, as much as I shallow water fish, I grew up, my dad and his team partner, we were structure fishermen. I mean, we were out in the middle of the lake using a paper graph and doing all this stuff out in the middle of nowhere where everybody else was looking at us like, what in the world? So I have to look at that and go, to be honest, and it's really odd, this dynamic, and this is how I look at this whole thing is my dad and my brother and me, we all structure fished. We were out in the middle, and I'm just going to tell you, we all sat there and went, we happen to be better than ever. We use all this technology. We go out and do map study, and we felt like we were ahead in the game being out there in the middle doing all that. And we'd kind of look at guys running around like I do nowadays, chucking spinnerbait in the bushes going, what. And so it's so funny, but when you think back at that and go, well, you can't have that mentality no matter what's changing or coming, how I'm saying that makes sense,
Absolutely. I was chuckling because you just reverted back to, all those guys that 20, 30 years ago that were going down the bank, throwing a spinnerbait, chucking a jig into a brush pile. You were like, well, those guys don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're missing out here, right?
Yeah.
Because we got all this stuff that we can look at out here.
Yeah.
And now you got all the stuff available at your fingertips. And heck, the heck with it. I want to just go to the bank and take care of business up there.
Yeah, I'm just going to go up in the dirt and mess around. They can have all that. I mean, I fished a tournament 2 weeks ago. I spent the whole week, or New Year's. I was up on the shore the whole time. Everybody is out in the middle. And, hey, that's great. I mean, I got beat by that. Don't get me wrong. But it's still just such an interesting It really hasn't. The whole dynamic at the end of the day, as much as we want to say it's changed, in my opinion, it really hasn't changed amongst anglers and what they get fizzed up about and what they, I mean, I'm sure some guys back in our days going, I don't think it's right they get to go out there in the middle and run a paper graph around and look for fish. I don't know about that. It's probably been, I think it's been the same the whole time. So it's just interesting. So
yeah, it's good. It's good that you can keep that, that perspective, because I think you're right. It's, things are always evolving. Nothing stands still. It's always going to be changing. You can't stop time, and you can't stop technology. As humans,
yes,
that's one of the things we do, man. We just tinker with stuff. We're always just trying to expand and grow and make stuff better, make stuff different. And
oh yeah, I've been down that road when I was in my 20s and fishing tournaments. Well, I never quit fishing tournaments, but I was going home, man. I was taking on every bit of information I had. Whatever graph came out, and you got to figure it was way different then, but still, if you could get the brand new Lawrence X70 and a 3-dimensional, I was buying it. I wanted to figure that out. That I was, as a competitor, I was trying to bring on everything I could. I wanted the fastest boat. I'd do everything I could possibly to make it do everything it could. I wanted the very, very best trolling motor that was available at the time. So really, it hasn't changed a bit, And so, I have a lot of people come at me and go, "Oh man, I'm sure you're a hater. Man, you want to go back to old days." And I'm like, "No, man, we're fine. It's all good. There's room for all of us."
Well, the old days where you were out there doing all that stuff and nobody was bothering you.
No, nobody cared.
That's the difference maker, right? Like now, you're up on the bank and nobody's bothering you on the bank. I can promise you that.
Nope. Just like I was talking about New Year's, I never got turned away from, and you got to understand these places I'm fishing here on my home lake of Beaver. These are community spots for my entire life, places that normally you've got to wait in line to get on. I just pull up there and fish, and nobody's there.
Right.
And it's just a different thing. But it's been fun. I enjoy looking at both sides of it, and for me personally, it's not that I'm just a lot of people just go, man, he's only a shallow water guy, and he's just as kind of stubborn in his ways, and I'm really not that way. It's just, for me personally, what I found is it's kind of like my video I made the other day. Is for me personally, and I don't want anybody to ever say, hey, I'm telling you how to do things, because that's the most magical thing about fishing is, and even competitive fishing is, man, it's totally up to you. You can do it any way you choose to do it, and it's okay. So for me, I just found that here a few number of years back, probably, well, it was at least 15 years. It seems like yesterday, but I had gotten a brand new boat, man, and I had everything. It was amazing, and I got out, and I was out in the deep water and doing what I learned, had been as a child. And man, I was using my electronics, and I went with buddies to learn to drop shot and jig a spoon. And it was the most frustrating time of my entire life, because I had begun to kind of learn how to catch these fish, visually watch them on my graph and doing all this stuff. And I was losing tournaments one after another because I was confused. I would pull up and try to fish a topwater on a point, but then I'd get to looking at my electronics and go, oh, they're out here. And I'd go to fishing for them. They're like, oh man, I got to stop this to get back up on the point, and a couple casts and be looking at my electronic. Oh man, golly, they're piled up out here. I got to figure out how to catch these, and would just blow tournaments because I was so undecisive about how I was going to go about my game of the day. It wasn't that the electronic way or the looking at those fish was not the right way, and it wasn't that the shoreline fish weren't the right way or whatever. But I realized I have to, for me personally, I have to sit down and go, you need to define how you're going to fish, what you enjoy the most, and stick to that, and kind of narrow my, I hate to say tunnel vision, but for me, I kind of had to get it down to where it was easier for me to process and not get sidetracked. So if I can see them on a graph, I promise you, I'm just like my little Dotson. It's squirrel. I'm going after. Oh golly, look at that. Yeah. So the best thing for me to do is not be able to see it.
Yeah, well, it's like that if you got too many rods on the deck of your boat. Like if you go to the lake and you got 12 rods up there, you're going to throw something for 10 minutes and you're going to try something else for 10 minutes. And next thing you know, you haven't really accomplished anything because you haven't given, anything long enough to work. And I think you hear that a lot with people that lean on forward facing sonar a lot. It's like, and I think this is one of the things that the veteran professional tournament anglers are having. Some of the well-known names that you hear, they're having problems committing to the new technology or not committing to the new technology.
Yes,
because exactly what you said, Chris, you'll do that with Jonathan and I both have forward-facing sonar on our boats, but we've been fishing for a long time, so we've got that. We're definitely traditional fishermen at heart, but we've adopted the new technology and we're learning with it. But our roots are still, the way we grew up fishing is still in the blood. And, we divert for that. We will lean on that and we're always getting pulled in that direction. But the problem can be is when you're fishing some laydowns, and it's exactly what you said, Chris. You're fishing some laydowns and you spin the head of your trolling motor out there. They're 80 feet away from your boat is a couple bass suspended. Well, next thing you know, you're out in the middle of that cove. You're throwing at these fish way off the bank, and you get hung up out there for an hour. And it may work out fine. But if it doesn't, you're going to start looking back at what which is the bank. And the grass and the laydowns and the riprap and rocks and the bluffs and the stuff that you can visually see. And you're going to end up working your way back over towards that and do that for a little bit. Next thing you know, you look out deeper and there you go out there again. So it's like you almost have to, it's like the best live scopers go out with two baits, a jerk bait and a minnow. And they cover as much water as they can for 8 hours. And that's what they do. The best shallow water fishermen pick up a couple baits. They go to the seasonal areas that should be holding fish, and they cover as much as they can. The people that are doing a little bit of both, I mean, they can either strike gold or they're just going to not hit anything. And that's the battle, in my opinion, that's going on with some of these veteran professional fishermen. They're trying to learn the new technology, but their roots are in the old school ways, and they can't quite lean one way or the other. They're trying to figure. Yeah, it's tough. It's just a tough thing to go from what you learn to something completely new.
It's like this. So it's really odd. My brother, he's 2 years younger than me, and he is one of the, back in the day, we did a lot of vertical fishing even with a flasher and paper graph and all that. He is absolutely, and it's odd because even back then I liked to shallow fish too. Once I started fishing had my own boat and started doing all that. And I absolutely love old school flipping, like pull it with your hand and just going slow, pulling your line. And, I'd fish all day 4 or 5 bites. That was my style, doing that type of thing. Now he was 100% grounded in fishing deep. He was going to fish deep every tournament, no matter what. It was his thing. I had my thing. And so every now and then I'd get on a big bunch of group of flipping fish, and I'd be like, "Hey, bro, man, you got to go with me, and you got to get in on this, man. You're going to love it." And we'd go, and he'd hack around with that old flipping stick for a little while, and finally he'd be like, "Look, man, I don't like this. I don't care how many 5-pounders you jerk over the side. I don't enjoy this. I just soon take my 6-pound line and go down the lake, fish a deep ledge or brush pile. That's who I am." And this is something that I've noticed over the last few years is, if you look back in time, used to, when I would look at my local lake or even fishing tournaments, even back in Red Man and all through Bassmaster, just think about this. You had Zell Rowland, man. Oh, he's a topwater guy. Denny Brower, dude, if it's flipping by, he's going to beat your face in. And so on and so forth. And you had these guys that were established in techniques
Specialists. They were specialists.
They were specialists. Now, what we've happened to us over the last really 2 decades is anglers are now, in my opinion, I'm going to use probably the wrong word here, but it's almost like they're ashamed to say, hey, man, I'm a flipper. I'm going to flip every tournament. And once a year, I'm going to have my chance. And everybody's going to, and I'm going to be known as a flipper. I'm going to win every now and then as a flipper. Everybody knows I'm going to go to the furthest reaches of wherever and flip every tournament. And that is going to be who I am. And nothing's going to change that. Used to, anglers were proud to say, hey, you know what? I went to the river and I flipped all day long and I zeroed, but I flipped all day long.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? They were proud of that. They were okay with that because they knew their day was going to come at some point during the year or twice. And that was A-okay. And that's exactly how I look at fishing. I go, you know what? I know I'm not going to, I can look at the events and know I just need to survive in. And I can look at the events and go, this is going to be one that I'm going to have a good chance in. Let's make the best of it. And what I found is I think people look at those anglers better than they do the one that's just all over the place. He can't get established. You know, I mean, I'm going to watch Denny Bauer flip. I don't care if he doesn't catch bass. And I'm going to go, man, I love that guy. And that's all changed. We don't have that anymore, in my opinion. We don't look at anglers like that anymore and go, hey, this is getting ready to be his tournament because this is a crankbait lake. He's going to be in business. And I think anglers have gotten to where they don't want to be
pigeonholed, kind of.
Yeah, pigeonholed as a whatever. You know, we all know Denny could do everything pretty well, but when it got down to it, the dude's a flipper. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it just seems like anglers don't want to be that anymore. They don't. Just like one of these new guys, like you was talking about, that are 100% live scope. Hey, I'm okay with looking at it and go, hey, man, you're a live scoper. I know you're a live scoper. You're the best live scoper on the lake. I know you are. And I 100% respect you for it because you're the best at it. And
do you think social media is the culprit to a lot of this? As you're talking about this, it's, you know, that you said that you think they're ashamed to admit what they're doing or to pigeonhole themselves. But a lot of it, you know, back in the day, Denny didn't have social media. You only knew Denny was a flipper because when they went to those lakes, those flipping lakes down in Florida, your part of the world, you know, everywhere, he was a flipper. And you didn't see, it wasn't instant feedback. You kind of forgot about Denny when they went up north or when they were on a big deep reservoir. Now it's instant. If there's a Jay Beffa said, unless you're John Cox, if John Cox doesn't catch him, we're like, whoa, what happened here? Like, why didn't? But we know that day that he didn't catch him. You know, 20 years ago, we didn't know that he didn't catch him. We just knew he didn't win. So I think a lot of it is people, because everything's public now, right? We got to put our life on social, and I mean that's what we're doing right now tonight is putting our life on social. But it's definitely, I think the social media aspect of it, good, bad, or indifferent, has everybody's looking for the next big click,
and they're looking at it right now. You know, I guess what you're saying, and you know, it's kind of an odd subject we got off on here, but I guess what I'm trying to say is even though, let's just keep using Denny for a reference, even though he went up north swing and went through all that and went through half a year without catching any fish, he was still 100% relevant.
Right.
And where all of a sudden now, you know, if you're not hanging in there the second day, you're not relevant anymore. And I would say that is from the social media thing. It's got to be relevant right now, right this moment. Otherwise, it's not relevant. And I may be wrong. It may be better out in the world of us, kind of like what I'm learning. There's more of me out there than I think. I think it's different, you know. And
I I don't disagree with you at all. I think back to like, I don't remember what classic it was, the first live classic. And it was the first classic that Kevin missed in a row.
Okay.
He had a bunch in a row. I do remember that.
When would
But
that have
live
been? Like
fishing. So
09, 10, 11?
something like that. That's what I want to say. But live fishing, I mean, you didn't know who was going to catch them before. It was a TV production, and it was a surprise at the end of the day for everybody. Hey, that's still my one of my biggest complaints about the classic is I already know who won the classic before, because I've been to a couple classics. Sitting there in the arena, it's like I already know who won. Might as well go to the house. Like,
yeah.
What's the point? What's the point of watching them weigh in for? If you've ever been to a classic, it doesn't take 5 minutes. It's a long process.
Yeah.
You're going to be sitting there for a little bit.
Like a long time. And I already know. I already saw him on YouTube earlier. I watched him catch the big ones. He's winning, you know.
Right. and I hate that. I don't know about you guys, but I don't like knowing. I want to be surprised.
Yeah, I want to get down to the last fish going on the scale and going, holy crap, he won.
Right.
Yeah. Or he didn't. You know, the suffering that goes along with just, you know, the guy being quite short or something like that.
Well, why do guys watch college football on Saturday and professional football on Sunday? Why do guys watch, baseball in the summers? Because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yep.
Every one of them, you don't know what's going to happen. We all know what's going to happen sitting on our couch, what the outcome is going to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you got a little. I think, me personally, I think they should shut the bass track off at noon, where you got at least 3 hours where you don't know what happened. I mean, they still shut it off at a little bit before the tournament, and sometimes things change. There's been several tournaments where somebody will make a 3 or 4 pound coal, the last 30 minutes of the tournament, and he's sitting in like 23rd on bass track, and it goes off, and then he comes in and he ends up sitting in 3rd or something. There's a sneaky jump, but most of the time, like Jonathan's saying, you already know how, for the most part, how it's going to line up. So it takes that drama and that mystery out of it. I think that they should. I think they should give you 3 hours of not knowing what's going on at least. Well, I mean, some people don't think they should do bass track at all.
I'm pretty sure they're rewarded for their bass track, aren't they?
What's that?
They're rewarded for how close they are on their bass track.
Yeah, there's like $1,000 bonus for that.
Yeah. So if you're within, or if you hit it on the head, you get extra points or whatever.
Well, they can still go from the beginning of the tournament to noon. Are you the one that's on the head from the the bass track time frame, whatever that is?
Wow.
Same thing.
I didn't even know that. Wow.
Yeah. So and I mean, you think about these scales now. I mean, they're down to the the gnats. What? I mean, it's tight. They know exactly how much they got, and most of those guys know if I got 18 1/4 on my scales, their scales are going to say 19 and 19.2. They know that the difference of their scales versus the official scales.
Official scale. Yeah, they know all the difference and how it's going to play out. And it's crazy the difference in the dynamic of all that right there.
And I always loved Kaku because he was like, it's a 3-pounder. And it's like, no, that was a 6-pounder. He's like, no, it's a 3-pounder. But he only knew like 3-pounder. He didn't know how to convert it from what is it? Kilograms to pounds.
Oh, it was a 3 kilogram, but it was a 6-pounder.
I think he would always like say 3 pounds or 3.5 pounds, and it was like, that's a 4-pounder, bud. Like there ain't no way that's a 3-pounder.
Yeah.
So bass track always said 15 pounds.
Do you think, Chris, that here's another question we can all kind of chime in on this. Do you think as time goes on and the fish that are out deep are getting more pressured, do you think that there is going to be chances to win? Not around the spawn, so to speak of, but in a normal tournament where fish aren't drawn to the bank for their mating rituals. Do you think there'll be a time where you can actually compete up shallow? I know somebody mentioned John Cox, and he's been able to do it. Greg Hackney, who's a phenomenal shallow water angler, has been struggling up shallow a little bit the last couple years, but there's a lot of shallow anglers at heart that haven't been able to stay ahead of the curve other than John Cox. Do you think that's a possibility that those fish will start showing up again, or what's your thoughts on that?
I'm a little torn on this particular thing. At first, I was 100% convinced that we were going to begin to see a lot more shallow water fish on the bank because everybody was out putting so much pressure on them out in the lake. I thought they were just all of a sudden there's going to be shallow fish everywhere. What I've noticed myself, and I will tell you, I fish shallow the majority of all the time, and I don't know that that's going to happen. I think a guy can always be a competitor shallow. I think you can always be in the game shallow. I think you can always be relevant shallow. And I think you're going to have a chance to win tournaments shallow here and there. But my biggest thing that I'm noticing is I think these fish, what I'm noticing, and maybe try to explain why I feel that way, is what I really feel like is happening a lot is, say like here on my home lake is, I've fished here since I was a little bitty kid. So I understand these areas that are pre-spawn type areas where groups of fish that I knew were out there. They were out in the open water. We knew they were out there. We knew that's where they spent their winters and summers, and really couldn't target them because they were suspended, and the fish they all catch today. And we knew they were out there. So going into, say, right now, going into pre-spawn, these fish would begin to gravitate into those areas, onto that first pre-spawn, channel bank, into a creek arm. And throughout the entire spring, we would have you could go back every week and catch some bass off that bank. You go there in a tournament on this Saturday, you catch 2. You go back next Saturday, you catch 3. You go back the following week, you catch another one. That doesn't seem to happen like that as much anymore. And I really believe that these fish are getting and this ain't no downplay on the people who are catching them. They're being intercepted before they get to these areas, except for a very few of them, or maybe one group of them every now and then that you might really get on a big stringer that just happened to move up overnight. You hit them. And it's really changing the shallow water dynamic in that form, I think. And that's the way I see it. I don't know, we'll see how it plays out. Everybody kind of thinks there's just going to be this huge shallow water resurgence. I don't think it's going to be all of a sudden everybody can go fish shallow. I don't think I'm not believing that'll happen.
I think the fish, here's kind of my take on it. I think these fish are getting pressured in places that they normally would call a sanctuary. So in the wintertime, a lot in the summertime, these fish could pull out off the bank. When they needed to say their a lot of their forage is up shallower. When they needed to feed, they could slide up. You see this in summertime tournaments a lot. If you're fishing like a Wednesday nighters in those short tournaments, they'll be, you camp out on a point and you just wait for those fish to move up. And it may happen and it may not happen, but those fish will make a little move and they'll feed and then they'll pull back out. Well, those fish had a place that they could kind of hang out and not get pestered with, especially in the wintertime.
That's
they're getting picked on all the time now, so they're more skittish. So I don't. This is all speculation. We don't, obviously nobody knows for sure, but but it's fun to talk about. But I think they're more educated when they do come up, so they could be a little more a little tougher outside of when they're really feeding heavy. Just on a normal day, they can be a little bit tougher to catch up shallow. I think they're more aware of their surroundings, because if you think of you watch any kind of crime show or something where you got somebody breaks out of prison and they're really like paranoid, like somebody's always looking at them. When they see somebody on the cell phone, they think they're calling 911, and they live their whole life on the run. There's always somebody that they can't trust, and this person looks suspicious. They got really nowhere to relax, so they're hesitant to go back to their normal life, to their normal behavior patterns and stuff. They're just outside of who they normally are, and there may be a certain place where they can go to and relax for a short period of time. But I think a lot of fish are kind of living that prison break kind of lifestyle where they're just constantly getting pestered and they're just on edge. And you can catch them at times. There's times when they've got their guard down, when they're really feeding and they're really excited and they're a little dumber, so to speak. And that's the days that we all look for. But I think that when those fish move up shallow, I have to think that they're a little more heightened. Their sense of security is a little more jeopardized, and they're really on edge. And I've kind of noticed that around here. We fish, JB and I fish a lot of smaller lakes over in Southern Illinois, and there's kind of like what you're talking about with those certain banks where you used to be able to catch fish at. There's a lot of banks that I got a shaky head bank that I can usually, if I pull up and I put a 5-inch straight tail worm on a 1/4 ounce head, or actually like a 3/16 or an 1/8 ounce head, and I throw 8-pound test, 15-pound braid on a spinning rod. If I throw that sucker out there in this brush, it's out off the bank. It's right on a little drop. It's out in about 10, 12, 15 foot of water, and it's about 20 feet off the bank. There's a little stretch. If I throw that shaky head out there in the pass and I soak that sucker, I'll get a bite usually. I mean, if I spend 2 or 3 minutes per cast and really just count every little piece of brush right there on that brush pile, I used to be able to get a bite or two right there. And now I can hit that same little stretch 3 times. And one of those 3 times I probably will get a bite. But the couple other times, I may not get a bite. So something's happened. And that's not the only area like that. I don't know if it's because it's probably because I got a stupid YouTube channel and people see where I'm fishing at. But that's probably one of the reasons. But let's say that that's not the reason. I think people can see those fish, and those fish are getting a little more pressured. They can really hammer down on the specific pieces of cover and dissect it. Where before it was kind of fan casting. You fan cast a little bit and maybe you didn't get a bite and you kind of moved on. But there's multiple places like that are semi-shallow, not less obvious stuff. That's sort of kind of obvious that used to always hold fish. It's like those places where you could go and just get a bite on a tough day. A lot of those places seem to, I think the fish have moved off those places. Now, I don't know if they've went down the bank somewhere, if they've slid out deeper on a drop off, or if they just get out behind you and they just roam around. I mean, it could be any of those things, but I definitely see a trend that a lot of the places that used to hold fish on these smaller bodies of water, they're not quite so easy to catch. So
it's getting that way. Even on the bigger lakes, the small lakes are really seeing that dynamic. It really boils down to what you're saying is 100% correct. You hit one window of time that maybe, it's like me. I never paid attention to other anglers. I used to just be, hey, it's just me and the fish, and I fished how I was going to fish. In today's world, I spend a lot of time paying attention to anglers, and what I'm looking for is one window of time that this spot or this bank has had 30 minutes, an hour and a half that there hasn't been a boat there. Like literally a lot of strategy goes into going, I know that's a community spot, but I know how good it is. I know they're there. But there can be boat after boat after boat after boat after boat, one after another. But all of a sudden, there may be an hour and a half window that the boat doesn't stop there. If you're the guy that's there after that 45 minutes or an hour that nobody's went down through there and you've paid attention, you can go there. They're there and they will bite, and you can catch a couple of fish or maybe a whole bunch. But usually you're going to get 2 or 3. They kind of get clued in. This deal's over.
Yeah.
But you have to, again, like used to, that was just don't ever pay attention to other angles. You just fish. But in today's world, you've got to look at, and I've literally sat somewhere else watching a spot going, there's going to be a window today that nobody's going to go over there for a little while. I want to be the first guy there when that window opens because I'm going to catch one. And it's like that a lot. They're there. They're only going to bite when maybe when they're not on alert or whatever that is. I don't understand it completely, but what I'm saying is I experience this a lot, that type of thing, and it's just changing a lot. And another thing that's really affecting a lot of, and we don't put a lot into this, and I don't think people think about this a lot, but all our lakes are old. They're old reservoirs.
Yeah.
The creek arms are silted. You don't have nice channels. You don't have, willow trees and like our lakes spent a lot of years high and up and down, and all the reservoirs are now just shoreline. So there's not this immense amount of cover on these banks to hold big masses of fish. And so everybody goes, oh, they're all out in the middle. Well, they are out there more because what we used to have on the shoreline that would hold them is not there anymore. So they're making better use of the reservoir. They're making better use of a creek arm that now the back third of it's just mud, silt. And so a lot of that has a lot to do with what we're seeing as well. So we can't, I guess I'm trying to be careful not to say I think it's all technology or all people out scoping them. I think we've got a lot of different dynamics coming together here to change things.
Well, Chris, to your point, there's not a lot of new lakes that have been built in the last 40 years.
None, hardly any, very few.
Zero big lakes in the last 40 years. So to your point, everything's old. Now floods do help. I think, they reroute channels and they add new structure and they take stuff away and add stuff to it. But yeah, I mean, you don't think about that a lot though, but how many of the lakes, even the little lakes that we fish, the backs of the creeks are there's places that I could access 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That I can't hardly get into anymore.
Yep.
Well, and something else, JB, is lakes go in cycles. Absolutely. And they may have a successful spawn, and then something happens where they got a couple years where the spawn just doesn't happen, and you won't see that right away. Mm-hmm. But a couple years later, all of a sudden, there's a little bit of a gap. There's instead of there being, 100,000 12-inch fish, there's only 50,000 or whatever. There's still going to be some spawners, most likely, but there'll be a gap, and those are your potential, keeper size fish. And that's got to do with, like you said, the floods.
That could take 2-year classes of fish out.
Yeah, we've seen that on Kentucky Lake, and then the grass. A lot of our lakes around here have grass. Yep. There's some years where you do get high water in the early spring, and it stays dirty for a month. That really hurts the grass. The grass needs. It needs photosynthesis to regenerate, and that's the peak period of growth. That's when stuff's starting to brew. That's when it needs that sunlight to get its roots going and everything. And you have a month or two of really dirty water, you push that grass back, and it may take a couple years for it to really get going in certain areas, and it changes things. Well, that's where your bass fry, your crappie fry, your bluegill fry, that's where that stuff hides out until it gets big enough to get out there on its own. And if it doesn't have that cover, everything in the lake is eating it. So you may have an actual successful spawn as far as the fish going up, laying eggs, the eggs are fertilized and they turn into fry. But where you might lose that spawn is lack of cover and all the little baby, fry getting eaten up. So there's lots of different, variables in reproduction. But I think that goes into not only are the lakes really old, they've got lack of cover and the river channels are silted in, but you got, cyclical things that happen, including flooding, grass, spawns, all that stuff that can make a difference too.
So the one other thing that we haven't talked about, especially on at least around in here in Southern Illinois and Southeast Missouri, is, and I would say everywhere, is tournament pressure. Not just fishing pressure, but tournament pressure. The little lake that we fish, 1,800 acre lake, from end of February till November, there is a tournament. There's 2 or 3 tournaments out of there every weekend. Now they limited to 20 boats, but there's 2 ramps on the lake, 20 boats on each side.
Well, still at 40 probably.
Yeah, call it.
Yeah, they stretch it for sure.
Plus regular old Joes that are just going out there fishing. And then they
got Wednesday nighters too.
They got a Wednesday nighter. They got a Friday nighter. They got a Saturday Sunday tournament. Yeah. That's a lot of pressure. When I was growing up fishing that lake, if you saw a tournament over there, it's like, well, who you guys fishing with? You guys got a tournament this weekend? It wasn't. It's all public knowledge now, right? I can go on to IDNR website and see every tournament and how many boats are going to be in it. That are at least the legal tournaments that are
recorded,
have permits for,
right?
But yeah, I mean,
those fish are put in live wells.
That lake has been going downhill because of tournament pressure for years.
Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. Growing up as a kid, it's so different now. There was one team circuit and one single circuit. That was really more or less 2 tournaments a month on Beaver Lake from March till October.
Right.
There was, other than the one polar bear tournament on New Year's Day, there was nothing through late October, really middle October, November, December, one tournament on January 1st, and January and February was nothing. There was nothing, not a tournament one. Nobody even fathomed we should fish through the wintertime till we all figured out how good the fish bit. But, and then there was really only 2, and then a random one here and there. So, for me growing up, it was such a thrill to get the fish tournament because I had to wait a whole another month because there wasn't another tournament till then.
Yeah.
And maybe a Tuesday and Friday night jackpot through the June through August,
right.
So it's so different now. And, I'm really cautious about dogging on tournaments because I absolutely love tournaments. And
right.
I don't disagree with you, but how many 300 boat high school tournaments did you have growing up? 0.
None.
How many college tournaments did you see growing up? 0. Like that's where I'm saying it's not just us old heads. It's not the young guys. We're all collective. And I'm just like everybody else. I'm a junkie for tournaments. If there's a tournament and I got a good bite going, my golly, I'm ready to go fishing.
Yeah, it's such a different thing now. And I guess I remember back, having 100 boats in a tournament was just wow. I mean, holy, can you believe we had 100 this year? Now that's everybody's like, oh, crap, we didn't have but 50 or 60. That's not much of a tournament. Now it's just that seems to be the norm. There's trails over on Grand. They run 300 boats. These are team trails that are running 300 plus every tournament. And that's just one circuit. So you see what I mean? The first year I ever fished this particular circuit, there was 425 teams signed up for this team trail. And they would have 5 of those a year. And it's down now to more like, it still averages 300 plus boats per tournament.
What do those pay out?
Real good.
I bet.
New boat every tournament and 10,000 second, things like that. Great payout. That's why everybody showed up for it for $200.
Well, we talk about back in the day, we all fished before fishing was cool, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%.
I'm sure there's a country song out there that, we were country before country was cool, but
we were fishing way before it was even.
It wasn't when I was in high school. It wasn't cool to be a fisherman.
No. I can show you some. There, it was like you what?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember. I could not wait to get my driver's license because there were so many places that I drove by that I was just itching to go check out. And I'd hand my mom. Try to get, bless her heart, she would drop me off occasionally to some places, but I was nonstop trying to get her to take me to this pond, and first thing I did when I got my driver's license is I went out exploring like all the time, and I kind of didn't care much about sports after that. I mean, I played soccer in high school and stuff, but if I wasn't playing soccer, I was definitely looking for places to go fish. That was my like.
The bad part is I had a pickup truck and Dad had a boat. So.
Oh man,
yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I was lucky. My dad tournament fished my entire life, and it was there, but I didn't really get to start using the boat any till way later on. Till I was 18 plus that he finally, kind of like, well, I'll let you go with it.
Right.
But I had 2-man boat. My buddy he had a little Ouachita boat. His dad bought him, that we progressed into. So it all worked out just fine. But I did the same thing, man. Every little mud hole, just like, oh man, I got to get in there. I get my 2-man boat and get in there somehow. And now every little city lake and everything's well known. But back then, I remember one week, you wouldn't want to do that nowadays, but we'd hike across some old farmer's land and climb up the dam of that thing just so we could get in there, because you couldn't get in there otherwise, and just stuff like that. Because it was like, oh, we get over there, it's going to be crazy. We're going to catch them.
I laugh because me and my dad still have those conversations. We'll be driving along somewhere and go, man, I bet you could catch a fish over there in that pond, couldn't you? Yeah, you could, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. So
I've snuck in so many golf courses. I just
some of the best fishing, man. What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's it, man. Crawling around on your belly in the middle of the night trying to get to some old man's pond.
Yeah, get them those mutant bass that are they're fertilizer that's running off the greens all day long.
Oh yeah, been to some of them too that you heard. You just like, man, I mean, you're amped up and you're like, oh, everybody said it's full of monsters and big ones. And you get all wound up and you get there and not catch nothing.
Yeah.
It's like,
I've been highly disappointed many times.
Yeah, I risked my life to get in here. I didn't even get a bite. Something's wrong here.
Exactly. Like, what the heck, man? Pockets full of lures and
half of them are stuck to your leg through your jeans. Oh
yeah. Just to not catch anything.
Heck, we talk about that. How about wading creeks back in the day? Like,
that was fun.
Find an old Clearwater Creek and you run it for 10 miles in one direction as far as you could run.
Oh yeah, and then have to hike that all the way. I wasn't lucky enough to be in a world that Dad was going to be at the next bridge down there to pick me up. It was, however far you went, that's how far you're coming back. And cut across. I'm trying to think, man, if I cut across that field, it'd be a little shorter. Time you get back, you're like beat.
Covered in ticks and chiggers.
Oh yeah, and half the time you didn't. You caught 2 bass. Out of the whole trip. But God, it was fun.
Would you trade it for anything?
Oh heck no, man, not one bit. No way, no how. I love it. That magic that happens in that, and how to keep that alive is
and I think you're keeping it alive, right, Chris? I mean, that's what you're preaching out there. And I think it just took me back to this past fall when I got 2 sons, and we got a little 7-acre lake that we live on, pond, whatever you want to call it, in the backyard. And it's chock full of just giant crappie. And I'm a sucker for a giant crappie because I knock the sides off of them and they eat real good.
Heck yeah.
But the boys love going down there. Well, I'm a waterfowl hunter too, and you know a little bit about that, I'm sure, being down there in Arkansas.
I don't.
You don't? Oh Lord.
I don't. I got out of hunting so long ago.
Good.
I won't lie. I'm an absolute fishing diehard.
There you go.
Once I realized that I could skip deer season and catch big fish, like forget that junk.
I'm actually still out here deer hunting myself, but we got one more weekend, and then I'll be chasing them little.
You can break free.
Yeah, but no, we went out there, in my little layout boat that I duck hunt out of, and I put my son up in the front, and I'm in the back paddling around, and no electronics, nothing out there, just going fishing, man, just waiting for that tug. And I'm fishing this beaver hut, and I'm catching them every other cast, and my youngest is with me, and the wind had spun us around. I got him all situated, and I said, throw over there, and he ignored me, turned around, and threw out in the middle of the lake. What are you doing? But like, they're right here, bud. Right there's a brush pile right here that we're throwing at. We're catching them. And all of a sudden, he's like, "Daddy, I got one. Daddy, I got one." And he's he's got a bluegill. I kid you not. That's like that
monster.
And I was like, "That's got to be random." And he throws back out there again, and he catches a crappie another time bigger than that. Like, all right, bud, we're gonna go fishing. It's like, because he doesn't know any different.
Exactly.
That's the part that just, it was light bulb that went off. He doesn't know any different. I got buddies that talk about taking their kid fishing, and they were throwing a rubber worm and they're reeling as fast as they can, and they're catching the heck out of them. That bass don't know it's supposed to be bouncing on the bottom. That's because your daddy taught you that, and my daddy taught me that, and Gabe's daddy taught him that. Like, we don't
know all the answers. And
we don't read the same book that they do, I promise. And just him going out there throwing in the middle of the lake with the old crappie jig taught me that you don't have to always throw at that brush pile. You can, and you don't need that forward facing or that side scan or spot lock to catch that fish. You can go out there and catch them.
Oh, 100%. It's I guess that's, as you said, I preach that same message a whole lot, that, just do what makes you happy and be happy with it. It's okay to be honest. It's okay to go fishing all day long. And, that video I made the other day, I was throwing that old bomber egg. At the end of the day, it's okay for me to go to the lake, pick up a rod I like throwing, just because I like throwing it, not because it's the right rod, not because it's the right lure, not because I'm going to catch a bass all day long and I can come home and tell everybody about it or post a picture how many I caught, because it makes me happy, because that's my day and I get to go throw that, fish it the way I want, do what I want. And if I catch 2 or 3 and walk away from that being happy, that's the magic of fishing. And it's hard to do that. I mean, I'm a competitor and I'm ate up with tournament fishing, but it's easy to go into competition and let the pressure of the competition and everything about it steal all your joy away that you love. And it's easy to go, man, this is what I've wanted to do my whole life, right here, right now. This is what I want. This is why I go to work every day. This is why I save my pennies. This is why I do all the things I do, so I can get this one moment of time to come out here and do what I love to do, pay my entry fee, come out around the people I love. And then we get out there and we start not getting a few bites, and we drive home hating every minute of it. And it's like, what am I doing? I love this. Whether I can, and so for me, I have to constantly be going, look, I love this. This is where I want to be right now.
Yep.
And at the end of the weigh-in, and when I don't have no fish, I have to look at myself and go, right here's where I want to be. This is what I love doing, and take it in. And I hope more people are like that out there instead of, I just feel like that's gotten lost a little bit.
You just relived my Illinois deer season this year. I got to remind myself every night that I come home that I love this. I love this.
This was really fun,
Yeah. Well, in the grand scheme of things, this is just a small little thing that we're doing right here. This we're chasing fish, and we're so wrapped up in it that we lose perspective a lot of time. And we have to tell ourselves we are doing what we love to do, and we got to try to enjoy it. And there's days when it's just not going to go the way we want it to go, but that's okay. And, I think we were talking about social media a little bit a while ago. That's one of the social media has a lot of benefits. I mean, it's a great product. It's bring a lot of people together. Talking like, let's just say like Facebook, a lot of friends that you've lost contact with, you end up kind of catching up with them and kind of keep track of them, which that's fabulous. That's great. You see the latest news that's going on, stuff that may be relevant, may be important, but you also have stuff that's kind of just fluff and doesn't, in my opinion, isn't really, it doesn't really lead to anything positive. And something that happens with fishing is people are always trying to compare the size of their fish, and who caught the biggest fish and what's your biggest fish. And that's cool. I mean, you catch a trophy fish, you catch a really big fish, that's great. But don't feel like just because you go to the lake and you only catch a couple pound-and-a-halfers that you can't have a good day if you only catch some pound-and-a-halfers. That's just in my opinion, it's go out there and enjoy the moment. And I think that, that's one of the things people are trying to compare each other so much. I've had it several times on my YouTube channel where people will say, well, how big was that bass? I have a nice 4.5, 5.5 pound bass. I very, very rarely weigh them. The only time I weigh a bass
it was a 7. Don't let him lie to you.
is in a tournament scenario. It's just a nice fish, I know it's a nice fish. But people are like, how big is that fish? And I'll say it's somewhere between 2 and 7 pounds, meaning it doesn't matter so much how much it weighed. It was just a nice, respectable specimen of that species of fish. So, I took a picture of it and I respect it. I admire it. It was great to play. I'm going to let it back. But I'm not somebody that tries to log how many 4-pounders they catch, how many 5-pounders they catch, where I think some people maybe, and I'm not thinking of anybody in particular. I'm just saying sometimes that social media can make you feel like you're not having as good a time as somebody else because you're not maybe catching that many big fish or we're trying to compare ourselves to something. Really fishing is about going out there and enjoying your time on the water. It doesn't matter how you catch them. It doesn't matter how big they are. Did you have a good time? You got out of the house. You're out there enjoying God's creation. You're out there in nature, and you should go out there and have fun and not be so worried about how does your fish compare to somebody else's fish. And I think, Chris, I think that's something that we need to continue to preach out there and keep that stuff going, because that's the important stuff, man. That's what life's all about, is just having a good time and keeping it in perspective.
That's it right there. And a good friend of mine, he's a really great friend. He's a great mentor, and he talks about mindset all the time. And really, just like me, my fishing it's just about a mindset. It's not that. It's just it's a perspective of mine, and I guess every one of us has to find that for ourselves, and then embrace it and go with it, however that looks. And once again, I've been in the wrong mindset where it's like, oh God, and then it's bad. But keeping it in perspective, and again, I it's hard to say some of that because I'm just like you fellas. And when it comes to tournament day, I want to catch them. I mean, I want to do good. I don't want to fail. I mean, it's all out. It's game on. But still, how can you keep it in perspective? Mm-hmm. and also take, is embrace the moments you get. And like for me, that win on the river, it was a lifetime event for me. It was an accumulation of a lifelong of fishing and chasing and paying entry fees and frustration that all accumulated in one event. And for me, what's really odd about that particular event is it has turned out so perfect. The timing, my style, everything about it has turned into an event that could have been just a flash in the pan, that I'm still here getting to talk about all that stuff a year later nearly. And I think we ought to all try to figure out how to wrap our mind around events in our life like that, because, things are still rolling along great, even though, I went to the national championship and looked like I couldn't fish a lick to save my name. But is how to embrace those great moments and keep them moving into this next season. I was thinking about it just today. I was paying my entry fee into the first qualifier. Entry date was today, and getting that paid and thinking, oh man, and this is the dynamic. I'm already in my mind going, oh, what if I go there? I got to do good there. What if I go there and I don't do any good? I got to do good there. That here that tournament's 4 months away, and I'm already beginning this. And you gotta go, whoa, man, whoa, what are you doing? Stop. Yeah. Beginning to worry about performance. So it's really hard to stop that, but boy, it'll steal your fun away too. That type of thing from tournament fishing.
Yeah, it means, some of that obviously just means that you still care about it. You're still passionate about it. And you're right. I mean, we all want to do good in tournaments, and we're down. Some of the toughest drives are driving home from a tournament when you just stunk it up and you're like, man, what went wrong? And you're sitting there going through the whole tournament in your head and what you should have did right. And sometimes that happens going to the lake. You already got it all planned out in your head, what they're going to be doing, how you're going to catch them. And
Yep.
it don't always work out like that. Hopefully you can make some adjustments and catch them. But yeah, I think if you're fishing a tournament, you're wanting to do good.
Yep.
But like you said, you gotta keep it in perspective when things don't go your way, and you just gotta. I mean, and I guess this comes with age. It's like you just gotta feel blessed that you were able to go out there and enjoy life for that given moment and doing what you love and being part of the whole scene. Because that's the one cool thing about tournament fishing is the whole scene. I mean, I like being in that scene, just rubbing elbows and talking with all the people that are, some of the best fishers in your area. Yeah, it's fun, man. It's just fun. There's some of those people you only see a couple times a year, especially through the winter. You may not see them from October all the way to March. And then boom, that first tournament, everybody's there. Everybody's got cabin fever. They're all fired up. They're ready to get after it. And there's a real good energy. So being part of that is pretty cool. I enjoy that.
Oh, me too. I love it. He's talking about that. I'm going to assume that, like me, I usually had a playlist that was going to the tournament, that was pretty wound up and good. And then there was kind of a list of songs on the way home when it didn't go good that, let's magnify the downward spiral here,
Yeah. You got those sobby, like depressing country.
Oh yeah. Here we go.
Hey, Roger's got a question for you. He says, Chris, am I too late to pay into the Pickwick qualifier?
If no, they haven't even, it depends on what region you're in. So the 14th through the 21st of January are for everyone that has a code through their state to pre-register. So if you won one of the 10 tickets, each state gets they give away at their state tournament a code that you can enter early that are allotted for all the states to have. And so I paid today. I earned a code through Kansas last year. And so I was able to pay for Eufaula today with the early code. On the I think it's the 21st through the 24th or something, you can enter the lake in your region. So depending on where you're from, if that's inside your region and you're a Bass Nation member, you can pay at that window of time. So, and then I believe it's the 24th through the 28th or 27th, 28th. You'd have to look. It's on Bassmaster. Then anyone in the nation can enter all the events, any event that's not in your region. So like me, I paid up for Eufaula today with my code in my region. Now I'll have to wait till the 27th and I'll pay the other 3 that are out of my region, and hopefully there will be enough space I can squeeze into the other 3. If maybe that makes sense how I'm saying how that works, but there's windows for each group of anglers through the Bass Nation over the next 2 weeks.
So you won. I mean, a lot of people on here already know that, but some people may not. But you won a Bass Nation regional on the Arkansas River. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
They call them qualifiers now.
Okay.
But it was the regional for, say Central Region, but it was a central qualifier per se, or central regional. They used to call it regional. Now they call them qualifiers.
So that qualifies you for the championship on Grand Lake. Is that right or not?
It did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Up 10% from each qualifier goes to the nationals.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's 10%. So like that one, top 20 went. It just depends. If they get 180, top 18 go. If they get 225, 25 go to the national championship. And then each state gets X amount of spots based on state Bass Nation membership that goes straight to nationals as well. And each state gets 10 of these codes to give to their anglers to help prioritize the old. We used to have the Bass Federation, and it became Bass Nation, and all this happened through your states. that still gives the states some priority, like they've always had, to get X amount of anglers to the qualifiers and to the national championship. If you only, like me, if I only wanted to fish through my state and I still have, just like the old way, a way to qualify to go to the national championship without going and fishing a qualifier or anything like that. So it's a really kind of wide open, broad program that gives you a lot of different avenues. So like myself, I fish Arkansas and I fish Kansas. And so this year I went and fished the Kansas tournament and was able to get a ticket to get an early entry into the qualifier, which I didn't do through Arkansas.
Okay. So I used to fish the Federation years ago, and the way it was back then, and let me know if it's changed any, but you had a local bass club.
Yep.
We were the Southeast Missouri Bass Busters is the name of the club. And the top, it seems like you could take a 4-man team all the way up to maybe a 12-man team, but they take the top, it was usually even co-anglers, even boaters would go to the state tournament.
Yep.
And then you'd fish the state tournament, and the top maybe 6 or 12 people from the state tournament would qualify for maybe a regional type tournament.
Yep.
Okay. Is that still similar to how it works?
Yep. And so at the regional tournament, you would send, I believe it was the top 12 boaters and non-boaters to the your region's regional. And then one out of that 12, every state got one representative that went to the national championship. So like me, when I qualified here a couple years ago, the national championship, I was the top finisher from Arkansas. I got to go on, even though I come in third in the tournament overall, I was the top finisher from Arkansas.
Right.
So I represented Arkansas. So each state in that region is going to get one individual to represent that state. No matter how you finish, if you're the top finisher for your state amongst those anglers, you went on to the national. That it doesn't work like that anymore at these regionals. They changed all that to where it's more wide open. But that same process still is the same for clubs across the nation that want to do it that way. So you can send your top 12 teams to the state championship. At the state, and I'll just use Arkansas for an example. I believe this year we get to send, based on our membership, we get to send 4 anglers directly to the national championship. So when we go to our state tournament, and we have 26 clubs across the state that will all send their anglers to the state tournament. The top 4 will go straight on to the national championship at our state tournament. The next, 5th through 16, would that be right? No, 15. Whatever. Next 10, I don't even know how to do math.
Arkansas math.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway,
next ain't any better.
Hey, it's cool, man. I don't even have shoes on.
I hope you got missing 2 toes, right?
Exactly. You can't see down there.
Hard to wear flip-flops, but
I got people now. Anyway, the next 10 get a priority code to go to a qualifier in that region. So more or less a regional. So every state has that same program. Some states might get to send 3, some might get to send 2, some might get to send 4 or 6 based on their total state membership. That's how you get bass allots your number to send. And so all that is still very similar to the old Federation days, still works the same. Yeah, there you go. Missouri sending 6. Obviously, their membership is very good.
So that's 6 to the national championship?
Yes, 6.
And how is that is that decided on points or
membership at their state tournament?
No.
How do they know they get to send 6?
No. What determines a 6? Is it points fished in tournaments throughout the year?
No, it's your finish. Every state's a little different. Like Arkansas, we get to send 4. The top 4 anglers go to the national championship.
Okay.
We are told by Bass from our previous year's membership how many we can send each year.
But to determine those 4 is tournament finishes, I would assume.
Huh?
Is it voted on those 4 anglers that go? Is it?
No, it's the top 4 in the
tournament. Top 4 at the state championship.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So once we have state championship, the top 4 anglers, so 1 through 4,
got it.
Going to straight to national.
It's kind of like we don't like politics on this program, but in a political environment, each state has a number of, electoral votes, so to speak.
Yeah.
That has to do with the population of the state. I guess you could say the population of the amount of entry fees for that state would garner them additional, qualifiers.
I was confused. I thought you fished all year for points or whatever through your local club, and then they just took 4 and they sent you in, but they take 4 from the state championship.
The top 4 finishers.
Yeah. So it's just like Gabe said, you can start at your club level, and let's say you're in a bass club with 20 guys.
Yep.
And let's say that bass club and their bylaws and their rules say we will send the top 6 from our bass club, boater and co-angler, to the state championship. So at that level, you've qualified to be in the top 6. You now go to the state championship, which is an accumulation of all the different clubs and however many people they're sending, because it's up to each club how they determine who they're going to send. They could send their whole club if they want. If they want to pay the member, pay all the dues, pay all the entry fees, they could all come to, once they're all at the state tournament, then we're fishing for these spots.
The national spots.
Yes. Or the
top 4 or whatever.
Yes. Yes.
So I got you.
And that's the state. That's kind of the state fork of this. That's that fork of the Bass Nation. Then you have the fork of the Bass Nation that is the qualifiers. And then each qualifier gets to send the 10% straight on to the national championship.
That's recent, isn't it?
Yes, that just changed like last year.
Okay, because now that you say that, I remember reading that and going, well, hell, you don't have to even go qualify you don't have to be in a club basically anymore. You can just go fish it's kind of that way, but it's still Bass wants you need to be a member of a club. Right.
Good standing. Now, you may not have fished that club or fished all their tournaments, but if you're a member in good standing in said club, then you can call up Bass just like I'm going to do. And I'm a member of the Bass Nation through Arkansas. I'm in good standing. I haven't fished any tournaments with any club or anything like that. I can now pay my entry fee into a qualifier and go fish that event.
Right.
And it was about driving Bass Nation memberships. And I could go into I'm on the board of directors for Arkansas, so I have a deep understanding of how the whys. And, a lot of guys were really upset with the change in format from, used to you went to a national championship, and I was fortunate to get to attend one of those. It was amazing. There's 50 boats and they pay for everything. And, it was a big, big deal. But they changed from that to now it's a 225 boat national championship, here a year ago. And I got to say, I'm a fan of the big tournament. It's just, for me, it's about the environment, and going to a qualifier I've fished the opens, I've fished the qualifiers. When you go to a qualifier, the intensity and the feel and when you're there, you feel like you're fishing on tour, man. I mean, it gives you everything you're looking for as far as a big event. And then the national championship is just, again, that same kind of big event. So I love it. I think it's great. I like the new format and the way they're doing it. And so we'll see how it keeps going, but I guess for me I like the feel of the events. It's not like you're just going to some little tournament and you get to be national championship. It's right. A big deal. It's big. And Bass does an amazing job with it, in my opinion. So
is it still set up to where the boater and the non-boater, technically, if the non-boater wants to share the front of the boat for 4 hours, is it like that anymore or not?
Oh, no, it's strictly a pro-am type format.
Okay. Because that's how it used to be back in the Federation days. Most of the time the non-boater probably didn't ask, but he had the right to fish, half the tournament up.
He got happy. It was just like the old bass, the invitationals way back in the day were drawn.
The top of the 150s.
Yeah, you could be drawing a guy that went in as a non-boater, but he still got half the day,
Right.
So no, they don't. That hasn't been around for a long time, and most states do a boater co format, and then right on to the nationals, as a boater co. Nationals are a boater co-angler event. You have a co-angler side and a pro side.
So that championship was kind of like the All-American, where it was, there was a really small field, and they paid for just about everything. The older All-American.
The old format, when I qualified to 21, and I didn't buy a drop of fuel, I didn't pay for nothing for the whole week. I mean, not one thing did I pay for, other than if I want to go buy a pack of worms somewhere or something, But other than that, they wined you and dined you, and it was an amazing event. I can't say it, but also extremely hard to get into. I'll just tell you, always hard. So
what were you talking about? The All-American or?
All-American's extremely hard to get into too, nearly impossible in my opinion. But
yeah,
but the Bass Nation too as well was there was just when I was there I was boat 52. That's all it was there out of the entire nation. One from every state was representing, and some other countries. So, but they paid for everything. It was nice to pull up there and they pump your boat back full of fuel every day, and but everything changes.
Yeah, but you fished out of your own boat, right? They didn't supply boats.
Yeah, no. When I qualified, you bring your own boat. So, years ago they supplied boats and the whole 9 yards. But not over the last, I don't know how many years they have not been doing that, but quite a few.
How have you got anything on the All-American yet, Gabe? How does that work now?
I'm still waiting for. I qualified for the All-American this year, and I'm still waiting to hear back. I haven't heard anything. It's not until the end of May,
right?
But I'm curious too. I don't know. I've talked to some people about it. I've talked to some people that fished it years ago, and they got spoiled. Like what Bruce is talking about. But I've heard it's. Menendez was telling me it's not like that anymore. It's not as they still cover some stuff, but they don't roll out the red carpet like they used to.
I don't think any of those sadly are like that. But man, at one time, it was Redman All-American and Bassmasters Classic, and they were both epic events.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on that, though. By the way, what a feat! Thank you. Golly, man, I spent years and years and years trying to qualify for that thing, and got close 2 or 3 different times. To me, it's one of the hardest feats on the planet, in my opinion.
Yeah. It's weird. I qualified, and I fished out of the back of the boat as a co-angler, and I qualified through the regional up at Pickwick Lake, and that was in first part of October. But I was just thinking about it about every 5 or 6 days. It kind of slips into my head, and I'm like, dang, I freaking won a regional on Pickwick. I got a new boat coming, and I get to fish all weekend. It's been a long time. It's been several months ago, but it's still, it's still like,
man. Congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, thanks. It's crazy, but it's still.
Hey, I got an odd question for you, Gabe. Do you have to fish as a co-angler once you qualify?
I think so. Yeah, it's not like the wild card. Like with the wild card, you had the option to jump on the boater side if you were a co-angler.
Yeah.
Right. You qualified as a co-angler.
You got to stay. That's what I figured that, but I didn't know if there's been so many rule changes since I've been involved with it. I didn't know if they changed that too.
Yeah, as far as I know, that hasn't changed. They everything's got to be matched up.
Right.
Boater, non-boater to keep it fresh. Yeah, there has been a lot of changes. I mean, they've. One of the biggest things out of the back of the boat is going from a 5-fish limit to a 3-fish limit this year in the BFLs, which is going to really tighten things up. I mean, a lot of times if you caught 5 fish out of the back of the boat, most of the time you're going to be like top 10,
Yeah.
But now you only got to catch 3, which is still going to be difficult at times. Not saying everybody's going to catch 3, but you're not going to have those 2 fish to separate you from everybody else that caught 3.
Is that
fighting things
25 or was that 24?
That's this year, 25. They changed that rule. So 3 out of the back, just like the Bassmaster Opens, when they, of course the Opens don't have co-anglers anymore, but when they did, you only had to catch 3. The non-boater caught 3. Guy in the front of the boat still got to catch 5. So that's going to change things up quite a bit. In fact, I'm going to have to start bringing cold tags. That was something I didn't hardly bring. I never bring them because
catching 5 was like
I didn't catch 5 all that much. I'm just being honest. I didn't. I mean, I did every once in a while, and normally
it felt really good when you had to bust out a cold tag. I remember that.
I've borrowed cold tags from my boater. Most boaters will have some old, broken down, shabby cold tags somewhere in their boat, and I've bummed a couple cold tags just to keep my smallest fish. I just want to know which one's my smallest fish, but I've kept track of them like that. But
well, it also keeps them protected too, right? Like you caught 5, you don't want one to jump back in the lake while you're trying to figure out which one's the smallest one.
Yeah, or if you got a divider in that live well, who's to say you don't get in really rough water and that divider gets cocked sideways and everybody just kind of mixes up in the live well.
I had that happen one time. My divider was real rough. My divider broke in half. It was one of the plexiglass ones in the middle, and the thing broke in half, which neither one of it was the second day, and neither one of us had jack spot really to speak of. I think I had 3 and he had 2. It was pretty obvious who had what, but at the end of the day, it was like whatever. But if we had had 5 and he'd had his 5 back in the day, it would have been a major problem. Trying to sort that mess out. Because now they're all mixed together. That was years ago, though. So.
Especially if they're close. You're like, the other guy's like, I think this one's mine. You're like, no, I think that one's mine. I'm giving up 6 ounces here. You can get in a fight in the boat for sure.
That'd be bad. I was glad I wasn't doing any good. Neither one of us had done any good the first day, so it didn't matter. But man, I was like, God, I don't want this thing. That's awful. So, but we used to do, back in the day, man, we had one live well back there, and we would, I remember I had a special way I would clip the end of the side fin just a certain way so that I could tell what were mine, and he didn't clip his, and that way we knew whose was whose, and they'd all be mixed in there together. It's just how it was way back when,
I remember baby pins, like diaper pins.
Yep.
Guys use diaper pins.
Yep. Did that too. Yep. Had about 4 or 5 different colors and clipping them on there. That way who's, did that too. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I got the non-puncture tag nowadays.
Yeah. Me too. Well, nobody's gonna let you use them in anything anymore. The BFL, they don't let you use any puncture tags, do they?
I don't know. I know Bass doesn't, but I don't see anybody that has them anymore. I mean, it seems like last couple of years everybody's went to the non-puncture cold tags.
I've seen some local dudes that still using them.
Yeah, they get that big rip.
Oh,
they have problems like with enough suction to really suck in the shad like they need to, because all that force is going out of that big hole right there. I think it messes with them.
Oh yeah, I can't imagine it doesn't. I've caught some that were just like, holy cow, this thing, both sides would be gutted.
Well, my thing is like, why are we puncturing them down here? Like,
get it right on the edge.
If those puncture clips are used properly, they're fine, right? Yep. You get them right under the jaw, put one little hole in them. You don't rip them open. But man, how many times you lip one? The Saturday after a tournament from the previous weekend, and you stick your whole hand down through his bottom jaw, and it's like, a lot of the local lakes we fish with the slot limit that we have, so we can keep 2 over 18 in a team tournament, and that's it.
I got you.
You got your 3 unders, under 14, and 2 over 18. Why in the world we got a cold clip on a 5.5 pounder?
Yeah, you're feeling pretty confident if you're putting a cold tag in a 5.5 pounder.
I mean, if I could hold them 2 up out of the live well and go, yep, that's a 5.5 and that's a 4.5. Like, those are the easy ones to find in there, not the.
Yeah, Yeah, those are the one. I don't ever have that problem with 5-pounders.
No. Well,
Like,
even if you do put that puncture tag up there close to the lip or the jaw, the back of the jaw, if you reach down there in the live well and that sucker is moving around doing that, and you're grabbing that and trying to hold him still, he can still, slide down and hurt himself. It's certainly not as bad if you put it way back there. Yeah. But even right here, there's times when they get squirrely and you're opening that hole, unfortunately.
It's not a bad, it's a bad system. I mean, I remember the first time it came out. I mean, it was like, oh, this is awesome, but it wasn't very long. It's like, yeah, this is not very great.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then we had a long stint of evolution of clips that fell off every time you picked one up.
Yes.
I think
you get in there and go, not a single one of them's got a clip on it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just pulling up empty clips like,
Yeah.
So back in the net they go. Try to sort this mess out.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's when you end up with 6 fish at the, at the weigh-in. You're like, oh, I got too many fish in there. Then you got to.
I was at a tournament here a couple years ago, some kind of tournament. Man, I mean, I was smashing on something fierce, and man, I'm really good. I really keep good count of what's going on, and yeah, I think I caught my 5th one, and I was walking back there, and he's like, "Oh, that's your 6th one, my coingler." And I'm like, "No, this is my 5th one." Like, "No, that's your 6th one." I'm like, "No, it's not. This is 5." "No, it's 6, man. You got 6." And I'm like, "What?" So I literally was in there digging around, dug all my fish out of there. It was my 5th one. I was like, "Dude, shut up."
Had y'all nervous too, dude.
Oh, I was panicking. Because when he was like, because it was like I was going. It was one of them deals where I already had, where I was like, I done went over my limit. Maybe that was, however he was saying it was like I've got too many all of a sudden.
Right.
And because I think I threw it in the live well, and that's when I was like, oh, my 5th one. And he's like, "No, it's 6. "No, it's 5. And then we just started going back and forth. Finally, I dug in there and dug them all out. I only had 5.
Yeah.
But boy, I was on the I'm getting ready to throw this 17 pounds out back in the lake here in a minute or something stupid, So it was.
I did that. I remember my first BFL. I'd been fishing and Gabe knows this story. Been fishing a local lake here with a different size limit. And what's Kentucky? Kentucky is 15, right?
15, yeah.
And that lake had a 16-inch limit.
Probably Egypt.
It was Egypt.
Yep.
And I threw at my first BFL. I had 3 keepers, and I threw 1 or 2 back that were like 16 and a quarter.
Oh gosh!
And I made
15 and a half, 15 and a quarter.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry, 15 and a half, 15 and a quarter. And I measured it, and I looked at it and said, "Well, that one ain't going to measure." And I tossed it in the lake, and my boater I remember him looking at me going, "All right," and never said a word to me. And I got back, and I told Gabe that I had caught a couple that were 15 and a half or whatever. And he's like, "Why didn't you keep them?" And then it clicked, and I was like, "Oh, you're an idiot."
You were that cocky co-angler's like, this fish ain't gonna do me no good.
Yeah.
I'm only gonna keep 4-pounders today.
Oh my gosh!
Which is not the case at all. Like, I cashed in that first one, and I was thinking to myself on the way home, I was like, "Man, I could have got a decent check if I wouldn't have threw everything back."
I could have been here instead of here.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, that's awful.
But I mean, just stupid mistakes like that. If you fish the same old lake over and over all winter long, and you fish tournaments over there, all of a sudden now that's a new size limit.
It's something else. Some lakes, they have a 12-inch limit on spots.
Yeah.
So like a largemouth and a smallmouth might be 15, but a 12-inch spot. And sometimes you need a little 12-inch spot just to kind of fill things out. And if you're not paying attention to where you're at, you might throw a 14-inch spot back, thinking
Hey, that Coosa River tournament, that regional, man, those little Coosa spots were
2-pounders, 14 and a half.
They were like 13 inches and 2-pounders.
Yeah. Yeah, they get big.
Oh wow. Yeah.
They work out real well for you.
Yeah, those are dandy. We don't have those like that. You're getting 12, 13 inches, but hey, well, most times I'm like, till there's 5 in there, those are just fine,
That's
right. So where you fish at mainly, Chris? Like what's some of your home lakes that you fish out on?
Man, I would say my home lake is Beaver Lake, though I fish it hardly any nowadays. I've spent my whole life on it, but over the years, I've kind of, you know, went through stints where I spent most all my time on Grand or Beaver. But really, from my house, I can be to Beaver, Table Rock, Bull Shoals is 2 hours away, Grand's an hour and 15 minutes, 20, Fort Gibson, Arkansas River over there, Arkansas River. I really have a plethora of water all the way around me.
Sounds like it.
That's really close. So, when I say really close, within an hour and a half drive. Beaver's about 30 minutes from me or 40. So I would call my home lake Beaver, but I fish it very little nowadays. I spend more time nowadays fishing kind of out on the road stuff, here and there.
So you're going to be comfortable on Grand when that Derby comes up. I mean, if you sounds like you spent some time on Grand.
Oh yeah, a lot.
Okay.
So we like our national championship. Truth of the matter is I probably spent too much time on Grand.
Yeah.
And probably ate my lunch over there, to be honest, thinking I knew what it was going to be like and what was going to happen, and I just missed the bite. But like the river over there where I won, I've fished it quite a lot. I've fished all the Arkansas River from Muskogee all the way to the Mississippi River. I fished every pool, and all over the state. So I venture out quite a lot nowadays. I truthfully spend more time down on the Arkansas River probably than anywhere, just because I love the aesthetics of a big river, and I love that kind of fishing. And sometimes it's really, really tough, but I just so enjoy it. Current situations, and the cool part about a river is like Arkansas River is, you can go today and it might be high and in the water willow, and you can fish the grass and do all that and have a great day, and then pull up there tomorrow and it's 3 feet low and completely change it up again. So I really enjoy the changing of techniques and how to find those fish. I really enjoy that about the river, where a lot of these reservoirs, they hit a spot and now it's right there for the next few months, not fluctuating a lot or something like that. But I'll about go anywhere. So Beaver, I just I go fish when I want to there, but I've spent so many hours there. I just don't go there much. It's been very good to me though. It's tournament wise and stuff. It's been good to me. So I don't cuss it. A lot of people hate that place, but
I've never fished it. Never fished. I got to fish Norfolk. Fished a regional there a couple years ago, and JB and I have been to Bull Shoals like 2 or 3 years in a row. Got
Bull Shoals is heaven. That's my most favorite lake in the country.
It's a cool lake.
It is.
I like that there's nobody anywhere. Most of the time you get out there and it's just like you got this 55,000 acre lake or whatever it is, and there's hardly anybody out there. It's like your own giant farm pond.
Yep. And it's still a lake that you can pattern fish on. Most lakes today you kind of more have to spot fish because everybody knows the patterns. But Bull is so giant that you can still get on a pattern, and there's plenty of water for everybody to pattern fish. And I love it over there. It's one of my most favorite places.
It's definitely different for us because we're so used to, shallow grass.
Oh yeah.
And you get over there and you're fishing in 100 foot of water.
Yep. Yeah. It's different, and it's full of fish. The other great thing about it. And oddly enough, like you said, it's still not populated, but it's never going to be that way. That they own a lot, the Corps owns a lot of that land around there. So it's never going to be probably overdeveloped, at least in my lifetime. You was talking about that. I remember as a kid, and if you've been to Bull, you know how you got those long channel swings. They may be 3 or 4 miles long, just long bluff lines that just run forever, 2 or 3 miles probably. And we'd go over there every summer as a kid. And I remember one night we pulled up on the far end of one of these big bluff swings. I mean, it was huge. It's just getting good and dark. And we was going to fish up. We just started on one end, fish up the whole thing. And I was just a kid. And I remember we was on this far end, and way over there on the other side, another boat, which you already ever seen a boat, but another boat pulls in. I mean, it's probably 2.5 miles away, pulls up on the other end of this bluff swing and stops and start fishing. And I remember my dad turning around and going, man, what's this joker think he's doing pulling in here on us like this? Like we're fishing this bluff, you know.
This is my bluff.
You know, what's this guy think he's doing? I mean, it was almost to the point like we're not going to fish here anymore if this house going to be.
He just got mad and left.
It probably would have taken you an hour and a half to get to each other.
Oh, at least. I mean, we're throwing worms going down this bluff. We might never even meet each other.
Oh, Lord.
Well, he was upset. I mean, it was a problem, you know.
Yeah, well, around here we got a lot of small lakes, and usually if you see somebody fishing in a cove, they're small coves. Most of the coves on some of these lakes are only I don't know, would you say like 50 acres or less probably?
Yeah, I was going to say 20 to 50 acres.
Yeah, they're not big bays like you have on Kentucky Lake, but a lot of times if you see somebody fishing in a cove, you just go to the next cove, and maybe you'll pull in and fish the opposite side, but you don't fish like, once you start fishing like a ledge lake or something, people pull right on top of each other, and it's just kind of like we talked about earlier. It's like a perspective of what's right and what's wrong, and it all depends on which body of water that you're fishing. So you can 2.5 miles is too close on some lakes, and 50 yards is too close on some lakes, and it's interesting. And
heck, sometimes 5 feet is not close enough.
Yes, yeah. I will tell you, Grand Lake it's taught me that lesson, and it was one going over there. I'd want to fish it like we did over here. It's like I want to stop 50 yards back and fish my way up to there, to that point. You don't do that over there. You go right where you want to fish, because if you give them 50 feet, they're going to take it. They're going to pull right up there and take it. And I don't mean this derogatory towards our own. And what I had to realize is when I fish Grand Lake, if you give the other guy somewhere to stop on the best part, he's going to stop there and catch the fish right smack in front of you. I've had it happen too many times. And you got to go, oh, well, I didn't get on the spot. That's my fault. And what I learned was you can pull up and do the same thing to somebody else, as sad as this is, and he's going to go, well, I wasn't on the spot. It's just it's just such a different way of thinking and everybody I've talked to said, yeah, it's just how it is over there, man. We end to end, boat to boat, and if there's a spot, like there's 2 boats sitting there and there's a spot one could get in the middle, just go in there, you can get in, It's just such and beavers, somebody comes, like you said, in the same cove, and we're about ready to have knockdown drag out who's,
Yeah. It's nice the trailer tires in the parking lot from somebody.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like you, Chris. I don't like doing it, but there's been a couple tournaments that I know that was the juice spot right there. And if I don't get there, somebody else is going to get there, and there's nobody sitting on it. He's sitting 100 yards away. Like, I'm sorry about your luck. You're pointing that direction, but I'm going there.
And it's sad. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying as you said, each lake's a little different, and they have a different mentality. And, when you're, like over there, when you're having 300 and 400 boat tournaments, then that's how it changes the mentality of the lake, I guess. And the way
you ain't going to have anything to fish if you decide not to pull in on somebody.
Yes. Yeah. So. And we had a little lake over by my house. We'd have little 20 and 30 boat tournaments over. It's just 250 acres. I mean,
and that's a lot of boats. That's a lot of boats.
Crap. I mean, you got to learn to mingle, just.
Earlier we were talking about, pulling in on a spot or waiting that spot for somebody to, that hour window that nobody's hit it. You could go sit on a dock on a lake or sit on a point and, spot lock out there and eat your lunch. Sit out. Let's just say you're going to sit somewhere for 2-3 hours as a tournament goes by. How many tournament anglers pull up on that community hole that had no idea that somebody else was just sitting there 30 seconds before they pulled in? The wake hasn't even settled yet from them taking off, and somebody else pulled in and started fishing it the exact same way that the last 3 guys fished it. And you sitting back there going, oh my goodness, how many times are they going to? But they had no idea that 3 guys hit that same point.
At the same way. They're not paying attention to that.
No. Yes. But you give it a little bit of break, or you see that every one of them came in, from this side, from this side, from this side. All you got to do is slide in from the other side, and they're going to bite.
Yep, 100%.
but paying attention to your surroundings. I mean, that goes for fishing, hunting, everything.
Yep, 100%. You nailed it. That's exactly my process. I watch and what's really odd is we've all been taught very well. So, we've all read all the magazines, we've watched all the shows, and it's like fishing down on the river. If I told you we're going to go down the river and we got, X amount of current, and we're going to go fish jetty walls, what direction would you fish all that?
Well, I'd set the boat down current, throw up current.
Of course.
Right.
Yes. And you watch everybody does it, but all you got to do is go down current.
Right.
And it totally makes zero sense. From what we're taught, it doesn't make any sense. Like, that's not right. I can remember saying, man, this is stupid. I can't go. My trolling motor won't hold me into the wind, but I can't go downwind. That doesn't work. But
if you think about a bait fish, the bait fish is sitting into the current and swimming
into it.
He's swimming up current. And I learned that trout fishing at Montauk, Jonathan. I fished with a guy. This is a long time ago when I first started going outside of the park, outside the trout park on Montauk, Chris, is a trout park, and it's about 3 hours away from us in Missouri. They have a hatchery where they stock trout, and it's probably a couple mile section of a river inside the park. Then you get outside of the park, and it's a Blue River stream. That the limits change, and there's not as many fish out there. There's some bigger fish out there. But this guy that I went fishing with, he would take an old Rapala minnow, a gold side blackback floating Rapala minnow, like a 7, number 7, and he would throw down river, and he would tighten his line, and he would get right up against those undercut banks, kind of maybe a hard channel swing where it kind of cut the bank a little bit.
Yep.
And he'd get as close as he could to that cut bank, and he'd just twitch that minnow, and it's sitting in the current, and it's flashing like that, and he'd reel up a little bit and just twitch. So he's not even casting or reeling in. He's just holding it taut in the current and just tapping.
Like it's a fish trying to fight the current and try to.
And then those browns would come out and grab it. So essentially, he was fishing the wrong way from what we think. He wasn't drifting it naturally through there. He was just like a fish is sitting in the current. And you're right. I mean, that's just a different way that we weren't taught to fish that way, but maybe that's how the actual bait fish are acting.
Well, and to both of your points, like, we weren't taught that way, but I think the reason why we fish in the wind, why we fish, going up current, is because we can cover everything. If that current's ripping or if that wind's ripping, you're going to miss half that bank. Why not go back and fish it 3 more times?
Exactly. Now you're getting blow with the wind. You're
not fighting it either.
Yep. You just ride it out. You catch one, you go back to the other end, come back down it again. I got on a bite on it. It's interesting, this concept, but up on the Mississippi River at what's that town? Way up
La Crosse?
No, between here and La Crosse, though, there's a couple of really crappy pools in there. They used to have a lot of Redman regionals on. Fort Madison.
Okay.
I ain't been there in years. They used to have regionals there pretty regular, but I found a little backwater pond, and in the center, it was 1.5 feet deep all the way around, and right in the center was a little island with a big, huge, this thing ain't 2 acres big maybe, but in the center of it, there was a hump that was maybe 1 foot deep with lily pads on top of it. And the wind was blowing pretty hard. And, I wanted, my brain was, I want to go up through there and fish around this thing going into the wind so I can, my casts are so much accurate. But what I realized was when I'd get to the other end and I'd let the wind just blow me back across there, I'd catch fish every time. I would never hit troll marks. Let it blow me back across. And I'd troll all the way to the other end, let the wind blow me across. And it just running the trolling motor, trying to cast, fight, just going against the wind. It was so much easier to fish, and I was so much more precise but you would not catch anything until you got the other. If you get the other end, just let yourself drift across.
Well, you said it right there with the trolling motor running. Your trolling motor is not running on 7 when you're going with the wind, but when you're going against it, it's running at 7, and it's putting a lot of vibration, a lot of noise in that water.
Yep.
You're not stealthy, I promise you.
Oh no, you think you are.
You're not sneaking up on one of them.
No, and I'll tell you another aspect of this concept is you're dealing with highly pressured fish most times that we always deal with. If a fish, even that bass, he's wanting to face into that wind or current. Is my process has always been this. I don't want him to. I'm depending on reaction bites. So if I'm throwing up in front of him and I'm bringing that bait with the current to him, he has ample time to watch that bait. Here it comes. Pay attention to it. Go, that's not real. Where when you're going with it, you're bringing a bait. He's facing this way. Now you're coming up right here. His first glimpse of it is right there.
Right.
Bass can't stand that. They grab it just out of impulse because all of a sudden it's come from behind them and it's in their face. And I think, and for me, it catches me a lot of fish. I feel like going.
Well, Gabe, you mentioned Montauk, and I think about streamer fishing at Montauk, and you throw that streamer out, fly fishing at least, and that big bow comes in your line, and then all of a sudden it snaps around at the end, and that's when you get bit, is when it snaps around at the end.
Yeah,
it's going up, you start stripping it back upstream back to you, which is against the current. So
yeah.
See, that makes sense to me. So it's drifting, and then you kind of pull it back into play.
And then
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in my mind right now going, how can I figure out how to make that happen on a bass boat?
Me too. I'm thinking the same thing. It's crazy. We talk about it, the stuff that we read in magazines that we grew up, kind of coming full circle here. Some of the stuff was 100% wrong, right? And technology has taught us that some of the stuff that we thought for years and years and years is 100% wrong, but it's not necessarily how the fish set up. It's about how we approach some of them.
Yes.
Like we talked about, just the whole wind thing, we talked about it a while ago with my son throwing out in the middle of the dang pond where I know there's nothing out there.
Yep.
But then he catches 2 big ones.
Yep.
And then we go to waylaying on them. But up here, do that. That's dumb.
Here's another one. You're talking about somebody that just throws out a plastic worm and reels it in. And that's not how we're traditionally taught to fish a plastic worm. I took my daughter fishing this spring and she was throwing a drop shot. And I kept telling her, I had a pretty light weight on there. It was like an 1/8 ounce, maybe a 3/16 ounce. Just a little, I don't know, just a little robo worm or something on there. But I told her just throw it out. We're both sitting in like 20. We're throwing up there to the outside grass lines, probably in like 7. And I said, just throw up towards the grass. Keep your bell open. Let it fall. When the line lays slack on the water, it's on the bottom. Flip your bell, tighten it up, and just kind of pull a little bit and shake it, and then just hold it tight, and then just repeat, all the way back to the boat. That's traditional drop shot fishing for the most part, especially when you're casting, you're not fishing vertical. Well, she couldn't keep it still. She's throwing it out there and she's kind of reeling it in a little bit and then letting it fall. And I told her, I said, you got to slow it down, just kind of soak it and move it real. Just pull it a couple inches in your head. You're just barely dragging it along, and you want that fish to really, you want it to sit in front of that fish's face. She couldn't do that. Well, next thing you know, she's bowed up on one. She's got about a 3-pounder loaded up. And I said, what were you doing? She goes, I don't know, just fishing. And I knew that she hadn't let that bait soak long enough, because I'm kind of watching her rod tip out of the corner of my eye, and there's too much going on over there for it to just be sitting there for a while. So I'm like, whatever, and then sure enough, like 30 minutes later, she's caught another one. And she did that like several times before I just kind of watched what she was doing. And she wasn't letting it sit. She was actually kind of halfway swimming that drop shot. And I was throwing I was trying to do a video on a Ned rig. So I was throwing some finesse light stuff, and she was getting 4 to my 1 bites on that drop shot. So she taught me how to fish drop shot that day. You know, it was a different way, but you can't argue with results. Those fish, for whatever reason, they wanted that drop shot kind of swimming through the water. And if you think about it, I mean, you know, you got a 12-inch leader, that little worm that looks maybe like a minnow or whatever. Instead of it sitting there doing this, it's kind of just moving through the water a little bit faster. That's what they wanted. So sometimes what you think you should be doing may not be what you need to be doing. And that's what's cool about having somebody that really doesn't know, you know, what they're doing.
Yep.
Doing something different, and they can teach you. I mean, everybody's a teacher one way or another. You can learn from everybody.
We talked about at the beginning. It's what brings you joy, right? It doesn't matter how you put your britches on, as long as you put your britches on in the morning, right? We don't really care.
100%. Don't care. And the great thing about this whole thing is, you know, we've sat here and, you know, talked about all these different ways to go, that the way we do it is wrong, or some of the things we thought were wrong, just like fishing into the current, is you can't discount that either, because there's going to be a day that you go,
right,
like, you know, what I'm getting ready to run into, I'm going to go to Beaver, and every dude's going to be going with the wind. I'm going to need to go against it. It's so open for change, constant. So you're never nailing down absolutes. It's not, well, now we know we need to go with the wind. We go with the wind every time. No, you have to leave your mind open to that new thing every time, and go, we need to continue to try to figure out how to get these fish to bite. And that's the magical part about it, is there's no absolutes. And he's talking about fishing with your daughter. Probably the biggest thing that opened my eyes was this boat captaining thing. And early on with my own son, I spent the entire tournament trying to coach him all the time. Like, you're reeling too fast. You need to throw closer to the bank, make better cast. You know, right here, this is how this. And then I was driving myself crazy. And I know a lot of my buddies, you know, we'd all be, it's like, this boat captaining thing is miserable. Sitting there all day watching this. Until one day I started just leaving my son alone. And then as I began to, he graduated and I started boat captaining a lot of other kids. I got to watching them fish. And I did a video on this. I don't know if I remember if I put it on YouTube or my Facebook, but I was actually fishing with some kids, and it was one of the most eye-opening things to me to watch, just to shut up and sit in my seat behind the console and watch these kids fish and just pay attention to everything they do. And what I began to do was, I would be like, man, I'd have never made that cast, but then they catch one. Or, you know, because at first I'd be critiquing them. Man, they should have made that throw, and they should have made that throw. And now I started just paying attention. I go, that's a cast I would have never made. And they're catching a bass on that cast. And it really opened my eyes to watching, pay attention to how, you know, they're reeling super fast. And I would have never went down this bank throwing that bait or reeling that fast. And so I got to where I so enjoyed getting the boat captain, because I knew every one of those days I was going to get 6 or 7 hours of getting to learn fishing and learn different ways, different thought processes, that as your daughter, that cast that I would have never made catches the biggest bass of the trip, and going, I'm missing a lot right here. I'm too smart for this game. I need to start, you know, having that kid thought mentality. And it really opened my eyes and really changed my fishing. It's the best thing that's happened to my fishing in the last 20 years was boat captaining, and not coaching them kids, but watching them fish. And it was super. And it goes back to what you both were talking about. All of a sudden, my eyes were open to some things that I would have never, ever fathomed. I would never caught those fish, ever. But I've incorporated some of that thought process into my own fishing. And it's been...
like you said, you just got to get out of our own dang way sometimes, right?
Yep, 100%.
We know, because we know we've been doing it for 30 some odd years. I've been at it. I know you guys have probably been at it longer than I have, but 30 years of doing it one way, you know, ain't always the right way. I had somebody tell me that today in my work. They said just because they've done it this way for 20 years don't mean it's right. And I said you're exactly right.
100%.
Like just because you did something for 20 years don't mean it's right.
It's just the way you've been doing it.
It's just
That's
the way,
just the way I'm comfortable doing it. Just because I take this old Shimano reel and I reel on the right hand side and then I switch hands and I cast with it, don't make it right. But the next guy that casts, my team partner in college, he casts with his right hand and he reels with his left hand, but nobody ever taught him that. He went to the store and was like, I'm right-handed. Why would I buy a reel that I have to switch? Like, for him, it did not make sense.
Yep.
Nobody taught him to pick up he didn't have a dad that had a bait caster like I had a dad that had a bait caster. And that's just how we did things.
Yeah.
It didn't make sense to him to switch hands, so he just bought all left-handed reels. Well, but this is my strong side. I'm going to just set the.
And you're looking at it going, why would you? What?
I'm looking at it. I'm like, you right with your right hand. Why in the heck would you not switch hands?
I don't know. It just makes no sense. But we almost all do that. Yeah. Well, I reel with my left hand with a spinning rod, spinning reel, and then the other hand with a bait caster.
You ever tried the opposite on either one of them?
It's weird.
Yeah, you're turning the rod. Hold the handle, turn the rod.
It's weird, man.
That's good stuff right there, man.
But it doesn't matter how you do it. I mean, I'm going to probably make fun of you turn that spinning reel upside down and reel it backwards. But as long as you're out there enjoying it, I really don't care.
Yep. Knock yourself out, I guess. Yeah.
Hey, couple questions real quick, and we'll wrap this sucker up. If you had, I've been asking this question to the guests recently. If you had one bait to fish for 2 hours and the fish were going to absolutely go crazy on that bait like they'd never seen it, what bait would you have tied on?
Oh,
you can just tie it on, go to the lake.
I get 2 hours of just whacker.
One bait, 2 hours, and the fish were gonna just eat it up. Season doesn't matter, lake, just whatever. You just go out, you tie that on, you're gonna catch fish on it. What bait would that be?
Well, this is gonna. I want those spinnerbait, and I've caught 1 million bass on one, and I can't wait to catch another one on it. And if I could go out for 2 hours with spinnerbait and catch one every throw, give me that spinnerbait.
What kind? 1/4 ounce, 3/4, half?
Man, I would probably if I just had one to pick, I'd probably pick a 3/8 Colorado Willow on my my 6 foot little short rod I like casting.
Pistol grip?
Yeah, I made one that's actually it's a 6.5 foot Shimano Compre that I cut the cork off and I magically wrapped. Well,
show it to us.
I gotta see this Frankenstein.
You don't see something like that every day.
So I actually did a video on this thing because I use this thing a ton, but it's a 6.5 foot Shimano Compre, and I cut the cork handle off and then took some of this weird tape and kind of knotted it up on the end, and just a little medium heavy. Man, I freaking love this thing.
How long is that handle section? 6-8 inches, something like that?
Yeah, about 6 inches probably.
You can't stick it in your belly. I can promise you that.
Oh no, you're earning it.
You're gonna break that wrist if you set it onto a log or something.
Heck yeah. You get a 5-pounder on there, you're gonna be like, man, I'm earning this one.
Hey, that's a good reel too. That reel you got on there. I still got one of those. Yeah, I saved one.
I think
Is that an E or is that a B?
I think it's an E. The green. Well,
yep. Yep, that's an old good. That's a good one right there.
Yeah, I got about 20 of these. I buy them every time I get the chance.
You pay more than retail for them nowadays.
Heck yeah, $80 to $100 for one. And
it's a workhorse.
I've got a bunch of the SLXs that I really like as well. Day in and day out, I've got a whole set of these that I use every day and absolutely love them. It's the greatest reel I've ever used ever. So you can get them. You can get them dirty, you can mess them up. They still work like crazy. But
I got it's little brother is the Sitka.
Yep.
And I got a pile. I was the same way back then. I collected those, but I work on all my own stuff. So you get one, and it's better to have 20 of one style than it is to have 20 different ones.
Yep.
Because when I break them down in the wintertime, then I know they're all the same.
It's not a bunch of old crap,
Yep. Give me about 2 or 3 of them, and then I can do them in my sleep.
Yeah.
So
I like the idea too of, just like reels, the SLXs, I use the MGs, and I have those 2 reels that I use, the old Corrado and that MG and SLX. I want it to be familiar when I pick it up. I want every rod to kind of feel the same, and and my hands are my fingers are long, and that bigger reel really fits me well.
I'm a Corrado K's. I switched everything over to Corrado K's. Still working through that, but
all those Shimano's were amazing reels.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think there's ever been a better reel in my opinion, but I might be a little biased.
I like my Shimano's. I got older Shimano's than anything else. So
But you got me wanting to. Where's this place at? I get to catch those for 2 hours at.
Wherever you want to be. It's in your head. It's in your dreams, in your head, wherever.
I'm gonna be dreaming about tonight. That 2 hours.
I'm a spinnerbait fan too, man. I love a good spinnerbait bite. I got a video coming out Friday where I caught some in really cold water on a spinnerbait. I like to throw that big. I like to throw like a 3/4 ounce with like a size 7 Colorado blade this time of year in that dirty water, and just kind of slow roll it through there. You might only get a couple bites, but man, it's fun. It is a blast.
About any kind of spinnerbait fishing, I'm into it. I love it, and like it's odd to go. The first thing popped into my head right then when you asked me that question was spinnerbait, and I was like, "Man, you sure? Like you get those spinnerbait all the time? That's about all you want to throw." Yeah, that's what I want to throw.
Well, Gabe, we got the old lake over there in Southern Illinois in the swamp, Horseshoe Lake. It was, 3 foot deep across the whole lake and cypress trees as far as you could see.
Yeah.
And that's what we grew up throwing. Was what you got in your hand was a 5.6 or 6 foot pistol grip with a Abu Garcia Ambassador 521, which was my setup. And there you go.
Breaking out the relics.
Old round reel.
Yeah.
I had one of those in green. I think they made a green version of that.
Yeah, direct drive.
So. Okay. Yeah, I used to have one of those a long time ago.
You don't get rid of anything, do you, Chris?
No. I'm a klepto when it comes to old tackle, man. I love it. The shop is full of it, and I got another room in the house full of it. If it's something old, I love just like this. This was one I picked up the other day. It's just an old Fenwick, but I bought another loose pistol grip the other day. It's sitting over there. I've been actually fishing with it a whole lot just to kind of reminisce. And holy cow, the amount of fish I've caught on the thing has been ridiculous. Just a 5.5 foot loose speed stick. I put one of these Corrados on it and just been fishing the fire out of it, having a big old time with it. And but yeah, if I go in a flea market or I buy stuff that I'm like, I don't need. I got 3 of those, but I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
I'll hang it. It's ridiculous. I love old. It's like I don't know if you can see. I'm gonna lift this up. So, which I did a video on this, but I'll try to move around. But
I'll put you on solo.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I saw that in one of your videos. Those old school graphs.
Yeah, I got they go all the way down the wall.
Holy cow, that's awesome.
So, old flashers, and they're mostly old Lawrence flashers and graphs, and like this one. This one's kind of, I don't know if you can see it. That particular paper graph was my last paper graph, and for the life of me, I can't remember where I printed that picture at, but it's a dang good spot wherever it's at. So
it looks good.
Yeah, but I actually bought 2 more paper graphs on freaking Marketplace the other day. Like I think I have like 10 of them things, but I'm like, yeah, I better get those.
Do they work?
How much paper was that? Like, I missed the paper graph deal, but did you have like how many yards of paper did you have in a roll, or how exactly did that work?
Open up the can of worms here, and I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Here's an old Lawrence one that I just got. Which
is that pretty heavy?
Yeah, it's heavy. It's probably 3 or 4 pounds.
Okay.
But like, here's a roll of paper for it. I don't know if you can.
Okay.
So you still got brand new paper.
Oh, I got case boxes full of it. One of these so these, if I could get one of these, they all run, but they have a major problem with them. I'll open this one up. Is these little feet right here on this roller? They're right there. You see it? Uh-huh. They go bad. And if I could, maybe if somebody on here knows anybody that could have that roller and the belt that goes in here to do the printing, I will have one of these on my boat running if I can find that piece. And that's the only thing wrong with any of these units. They would all work other than that. So,
But so how would you? Okay, so you're graphing an area and you got paper. How would you have you like that one that was a still shot on the paper? It had a nice little hump to it, kind of,
Yeah.
How would you find yourself back on that place? How could you get back to that spot?
Oh man, that's mostly when back in the day all that was around triangulating.
Triangulation, right?
So you're paying attention. Most of the time you were running your graph. You had a topo map in your hand, and you're like, man, this spot should be right in here. You're already beginning to reference land spots around you, or lots of times back then we'd be doing that. You like that spot on that one graph, you'd throw a buoy over right then. And so now you've got it marked out there. And now you're going to turn around and start fishing it. If it turns out to be a good spot, you immediately then begin to go, all right, my boat's sitting right here. I need to find a couple reference points. So I need to find a light pole or a house or the one tall tree up on the hillside that's the tallest one, that sycamore. And then I need this other. And you would triangulate and get you a really good idea in your head. And I got paper mats here that have that stuff written on there. They go sycamore tree, dock on far side, set boat in 25 feet.
So would you take that? Would you take that piece of paper, cut it out, and like reference that back?
We did do that some. Like you could go back and like say you spent all day graphing and you found places. Some dudes would even open that up and make draw a little.
That was my next question. Would you write on that paper as you?
Yeah, you could say like in front of such and such cove, river channel, then have your markers, your references.
I know some guys that have still have that file, old fellas, and it's all filed. They have rolls and rolls of paper that are ran, notes on it, and everything about it for references, which you didn't have any other way back then. It wasn't like you could waypoint it or anything like that. You literally had to.
Well, that was a pipe dream back then, that we had something that we could just mark this spot and come back to.
Yes. So back in the day, we would literally, my dad's favorite thing was a cedar stick. And so let's say we're pre-fish for a tournament. We're running through these old spots and graphing over them with a paper graph. And he would take some monofilament, a rock or something, and tie a cedar limb on it like that big and drop that on that spot. And so when we got out there, we'd look for that cedar limb laying on the water, and we would know where it was at. Now you got to think about how hard that is to see on the water. Or one of our favorite old holes, we called it the beer bottle hole. It had a upside down Michelob Light bottle, the brown ones, tied off. So the top of that bottle was sticking out of the water about that high, tied off going down to a rock pile on the end of a point. And all kinds of pork chunk jars, whatever you could find to kind of halfway market so that,
what's so obvious?
Yeah, nobody's going to think nothing about a Michelob Light bottle, but that way we would have, at least back then, instead of having to, we'd be triangulating anyway, but then you would go, oh, there's the bottle. You know right where to cast, and just try to speed up that process in tournament. And but it's still a lot of feeling along trying to find your way. And that was good times, man. Burned many a roll of paper on one of them things.
What's your setup now on your boat?
Oh man, I got on the. I'll try to walk around here. Can you? So there, I got 2 older HDSs on my console. Lowrance.
Touch or non-touch?
Oh, non-touch.
Okay.
They're the old ones. Oh. See if I can get over there. I am upgrading those. I did.
What year's that boat?
1986.
Sweet.
Yep. 200 Merc. So
hell yeah.
I am going to upgrade my 2 Lowrances on the console. Lowrance stepped up, and
you got an 8 and a 7 there.
Yep. I use this one for. I got a map chip in it, and I use this one for just plain old graph. And then I got a 1240A in the console.
That's awesome, man.
And then as we come on up here on the front, I'm super decked out. I got this 2230 flasher and a Lowrance temp gauge.
Oh, wow, that's cool, man.
It's like a flash.
That's almost shock. Like the lack of technology is almost more shocking than all the extra technology that most people have. That's cool.
Yeah, it's completely, and I got the old.
You got actual tackle boxes.
Yeah, the real deal.
Man, I can smell that as you open that up.
It's there. I just smelled it.
It's got a distinct smell to them, don't they?
They do. I bought a couple that were pretty nice that didn't quite have that quite so strong.
I don't know what it is, but I can smell it.
You know what it is. It's a. So everything I got's super basic, man. And I ain't saying it's the right way. It's what I enjoy and makes me happy.
That's pretty cool, man. That's really cool stuff.
It is cool. This particular boat right here, it's an 86 model 390V. And what's really unique about this boat is my dad fished with that right there, man. Same thing.
I only got 4 of them.
That's awesome. Yep. Good old Lowrance, man. I love them. So this boat, my dad's partner was a Ranger Pro back in the early 80s, and he'd get a new Ranger every 2 years. And this was the last Ranger boat he bought through Ranger in 1986. And I was 15 years old the day it was brand spanking new. He brought it to my dad's house to show it to him. And I remember just standing there like, oh my God, this is, he always had beautiful boats and top best of the best. And I got to fish out of this boat quite a lot as a kid. When my dad couldn't go with him or something like that, then I would get to ride along some. So I spent quite a number of years getting to fish in this boat as a kid. And then later on, he ended up passing. My dad had passed away, and then Hewlin Nations was his name. He passed away, and his family had asked me and Lucy if we would be interested in this boat, as we had so much. We would probably have more sentimental value with it than anybody in their family, and we were able to buy it, and it has turned into something magical. So though I didn't fish out of this boat my whole life, it's been a part of my life since the day it rolled out of Ranger. So super cool stuff, man. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that bench seat, man.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
I can see that old skeeter killer back there too, firing up and rolling out blue smoke everywhere.
Oh, yeah. You get every once in a while, you get some of those BFLs. Everything's 4-stroke now, but every once in a while there's somebody will fire up one of them old 2-strokes in the morning, and you're like, it just kind of takes you back.
Yeah. Over at Nationals the other day, I fired it up, and a big old puff of that blue smoke kind of went over this other old boy's boat, and I said, "Smoke them if you got them, boys."
That's right.
So I love it, man. You know what's really interesting is, and I said this in an article with Bassmaster. I got fortunate to do a bunch of articles with Bassmaster this last year. really thought that, fishing some opens and stuff like that I fished with this boat that, you draw a co-angler and he'd be like, oh man, I got to fish with this dude with this 50-year-old boat.
Yeah.
And it's been exactly the opposite. It has been every guy's like, oh my God, man, I love this thing. And such a different, it was just interesting to see that dynamic. And
what I will say, not to cut you off, there's difference in fishing in an old boat, and then there's a difference in fishing in a nice old boat.
True.
Because there's some of those in the BFLs that you look at and you're like, there ain't no way in hell I'm getting in that boat.
We're not going to make it.
There's already 4 inches of water in it. You just launched, buddy. Like, you have a hole somewhere.
Oh, boy. I drew out one of them guys in my early years of Red Man back in the day. And great friend after that, but he had an old hydro sport. And, man, we headed down through there, and you could watch that top cap just.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, my God, man, this thing's going to just.
Dave, you got a horror story on that one, don't you? Like the console fall?
Oh, I've heard a couple. There's a couple that come to mind. And this wasn't me, but this was in Kentucky Lake BFL. There was a guy that I ended up talking to, this co-angler. He drew a guy that there was no carpet in the floor of his boat. And when you stepped on it, it sprung like it was springy. And they got in some really rough water. They made a long run. I think they went all the way to Parrish from the dam. So it was a significant run. And they got in some really rough water down there. And the whole floor like cracked out. He said you were looking into the bilge of the boat.
Wow.
Yeah. And it started taking on water. And he thought he was going to die or drowned or something. Ended up pulling the boat back somehow, but it was a crazy story. And,
that guy fished those BFLs for quite a few years in that boat, didn't he?
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. That
was like the dreaded co-angler, like, oh God, I don't want to get that guy.
Like, oh no.
Well, he should have been reported. It would have just taken one person to say, this is unsafe. There's no way I'm getting in that boat. And then that guy would have had to, he wouldn't have been able to fish in that boat anymore. Because every time he took that boat out, he was putting somebody's life in danger, including himself. Wow. But yeah, and I've had guys, I've told this story on there before, but I drew a guy at Lake of the Ozarks. It was in a fall tournament, and they probably shouldn't have let us go out of PB2, but the glaze was somewhat clear. But as soon as you got out on the Osage and you went towards the Niangua arm, it just became increasingly foggy and more foggy and foggy, and it got really scary. Well, he was a guy that he was a boat salvage guy, a boat mechanic, and he bought salvage boats. Similar to people that buy wrecks, they've replaced the front fender and do a little bit of body work, and then they flip them and sell them for a price. Well, he did that with boats. Well, he had just got this boat put back together the night before the tournament. He hadn't actually ran the boat. It was an old Skeeter's, bright yellow, and it had, I don't remember what it had on the back of it, but what I do remember that didn't have was graphs. He had 0 electronics on there. So nothing, no mapping at all. And we're running. He's a local. He knew the lake, but we're making a pretty significant run up to fish you go out of the glaze into the Osage and into the Niangua and then into the little Niangua. Mm-hmm. And there's about 30 miles in between there, I'm guessing. So that's where we started at. But once we got about halfway to where we were going, it was fog. I'm talking the kind of fog where you can barely see the front of the boat, like scary fog. Yeah. We're running with no graphs. So every once in a while, we'd slow down and kind of ease over. And Lake of the Ozarks has 70,000 docks. It's not a place where you can just run around without hitting stuff. There's all kinds of buoys and there's break walls and barriers and docks and all kinds of things you could run into in your fishing career at an early age. But every once in a while he'd pull over, just kind of get a look at where we were at. He'd see an old, there's 3 palm trees on that dock, and that one's got a blue metal roof to it. Okay, I know where I'm at. And then we take off, and I was just puckered up the whole entire way. And I never felt comfortable at all on that boat ride. So you get that draw every once in a while, you know. I mean, unfortunately, fortunately, it's not very often, but if you fish BFLs long enough out of the back of the boat, you're going to draw somebody that does some crazy stuff.
Make you wonder.
Yeah. Fortunate to be alive, for sure.
Yeah, we talk about these old graphs. I just happened to like peruse eBay real quick, and they're still going for between $400 and $600 or $700.
Yeah.
Really? The Gen 2s, the non-touch Gen 2s.
Wow.
I still like.
You still think that's one of the best pictures, don't you, JB? Didn't you say that? Yeah.
It rivals the HDS Live that I have now.
Yeah. Wow. Nice. I may not want to trade then.
I wouldn't get rid of them. I'll tell you that. I don't think, Chris, you'd get rid of anything.
No, they're going to go straight onto my 10 boat. So I'll move them over there. So I'll have it on my little aluminum rig that I got as well.
That's, I got these sitting here like I said, I got 4 or 5 of them. I don't know where they're all at anymore. I know Dad's got 1 or 2 of them, and I've just loaned them out to people, and they still work.
Yeah, mine have never missed a lick. I mean, not once.
I had a backlight issue on one of them that it usually resolves itself, but I started buying them off of eBay. I'm kind of like you with that stuff. Like I went through a spell where I thought one was going to go out on me, so I bought like 4 of them.
Oh, wow. Like I got to have another. That's like I am in flashers. I got 3 or 4 more of those 22, 30. Like I better get them now. Get them.
They don't make them anymore. You gotta get them while they're hot.
Get another one. Just buy
I had bought. There was a bundle, and I remember this one. I know we've gone every which way but Sunday on this podcast. So I bought. It was like a couple of days before Christmas. We were at my in-laws' house, and I walked in and I told my wife, I was like, I think I screwed up. And she's like, what'd you do? I said, I bought something on eBay I didn't think I was going to get. I made this guy like a ridiculous offer, and he's accepted it. Because he had them listed like 2 or 3 units or 2 units for like $1,000, and I offered him like $400, just something stupid. Like, you're never going to take it. He bit. I'm like, oh crap. How am I going to explain this one? She's like, well, it's a good deal, isn't it? I said, it's a heck of a deal.
Well, luckily your wife sounds like mine. She's kind of turned into a tackle junkie too. Actually, about worse than I am sometimes. He'll come home from a flea market and go, oh, God, you're not going to believe what I found. And just have a sack full of all kinds of
wiggleworts.
Oh, yeah. Balsa bees. And, be like, oh, freaking yeah. Heck yeah. You just, you go.
Those are the ones that you don't hardly find them anymore, but every once in a while you'll run across somebody that just don't know what they got.
Yep.
Well, and it helps to have somebody else in the family that knows what they look like too, in case they're out rooting around looking for, clothes or whatever you look for at garage sales, and they run across them and they're like, hey, I know what those are.
I'm lucky in that point. I've actually had to go, hey, hold on a minute. Now we're getting a little crazy here. But I'm not going to complain any.
That's awesome when you got to cut your wife off.
Exactly. Slow down. Like, holy cow, you're going to break us.
That's hilarious.
Well, those old tackle boxes that you had there, I had a buddy call me. His dad passed away, and he was going through some of his dad's old stuff, and they're just old crappie fishermen from, talking about taking a little 10 boat out, like a little a P-row, a little 10-footer with a skull and paddle. That's all they ever did. And like I said, he's going through his dad's tackle, and he called me up one day, and he's like, hey, come over to the house when you get a chance. I got some stuff here I'm going to give you that was dad's. And I was like, okay. He's like, it's a bunch of bass fishing stuff. And I opened it up and I looked at him. And I must have had that look on my face. He goes, well, which one of these are you going to retire off of? I was like, well, I'm not going to retire off of them, but I'm not going to take them from you, bud. And he's like, why not? And I said, well, those are like a dozen or 2 dozen original wiggleworts in the original packaging.
Gosh. Oh.
And they still had the Walmart like bargain bin sticker on them. And it pained me to be honest with him. I'll be honest with you guys, but it pained me to be honest. It was like, you just put them back there in the store.
You better take care of those, buddy.
I said, we'll talk in another 20 years when you want to get rid of them then.
Oh, wow.
Hey, Chris, question for you.
Yeah.
Being in the Arkansas area, Bull Shoals, beaver, that kind of stuff. Sometimes you get out there in the middle of nowhere. You had any experiences with Sasquatch, or what's your thoughts on the Sasquatch? Is it a possibility, or are you just completely non-believer, or do you know anybody that's had any experience with Sasquatch, or where are you at on the Sasquatch
personally? And I don't think I have ever thought that I'm also going to tell you, I'm not convinced that there could not be, you know, but I've never ran into any Sasquatch, you know. I did, you know, as a child, I grew up with a dad that, you know, it didn't bother him to go out in the wooliest, nastiest, deep holler in the middle of the night with, you know, no light or nothing. And, you know, we deer hunt and head off. And I mean, we didn't have no flashlights or nothing to head off into no man's land and with no fear whatsoever. So there might be one out there, but we sure weren't worried about it. You know?
Yeah. I know I think about as a kid, the stuff I used to do as a kid that I don't know that I probably watched too much TV and I've listened to too many podcasts to where I don't know that I could do it anymore. I got too much fear from other external sources that have like soaked into my brain, whether it's good or bad. But I mean, I remember we were talking about trout fishing. I used to go fishing out there at midnight, fly fishing with streamers in the dark by myself, you know, way out where nobody's around. And I can't do it anymore.
It's like I love night fishing and do a lot of it, but man, there's some nights, dude. It's just
it's creepy.
You know, and like you talking about Bull Shoals at 2:00 in the morning. There's not. I mean, if there was ever a place I'd go, man, he's up there watching me right now. It would be there because it's quiet and, you know, no moon night. I mean, you can't see nothing. There's no lights around. You're like, yeah, there's other things out here that not just me, you know.
I tell you what, it's an eerie feeling when you can't see your own hand in front of your face.
Yes, it's dark. You know,
I'm talking dark. When it's a cloudy, nasty night in the middle of July, and you can't turn your light on because every time you turn your light on, you suck in about 400 mosquitoes.
It's like,
but that I know what you're talking about, Gabe. The other creepy part is the stream is running and you can't hear anything.
Just that gurgling all the time and noise.
But then you do hear something and you're like, whoa, what was that?
And it changes. It's a consistently changing to where it sounds like something stepped into the river.
And your brain plays tricks on you because you hear something walking through the river then.
Yes. And then you might even see it. That lay down that's kind of hanging over the creek bank, it might actually look like, you know, something about 8 foot tall. It's hairy and, you know,
pounce on you. I won't, you know, when I was a little kid, I had a pond and I'd go up through the woods and go fish in there. And, you know, I'd fish till it was pitch dark. And I will tell you, when I was coming home, don't look back. Just focus going forward and keep going forward. Just don't ever look back behind you, you know, because he's back there, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to say I wouldn't rule out anything, man. I'm a pretty open-minded dude. You know, it's the same thing as UFOs and crap. You just don't know for sure, you know.
I agree. That's where I'm at. I'm with you on that too. It's like
innocent until proven guilty, right? Like,
yeah, it's a big world, man. It's a big world.
It's a big universe and everything else that goes along with it. You know, we're little specks running around out here thinking we're something. You know,
we talk about the technology, and the one that I've been hearing recently is we're just in a big simulation, and there's somebody controlling us.
You never know.
Yeah. Hey, who knows? And then, I mean, you look at, I mean, yeah, I watch too much freaking archaeology TV and crap like that, and go,
yep,
there's stuff buried in the dirt that should have never been there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Well, you know. Well, we can go down this rabbit hole. You go to like Amazon jungle and stuff. They've been able to go over that stuff with LiDAR to where they can actually penetrate the soil, and there's structures that are buried,
yes,
you know, underneath the Amazon forest jungle.
I mean, we can head off out. I mean, you just think about some of them Mayan ruins and that junk, and just go, how, you know, they had to be. These weren't cavemen doing this stuff.
Well, you think about the pyramid, like the pyramids.
Yeah, that stuff's crazy.
There you go. I mean, come on, man. So anyway, you know, as I can see all our minds are beginning to.
It's late.
Yeah, well, I mean, the pyramids, they were mined from a quarry that's like 500 miles away. And some of those blocks weigh several tons.
Yes.
They didn't have heavy machinery. And they even today, it's hard to even, I don't think they can move that amount of weight over land. So how did they build the pyramids? We'll never know, but it's a mystery.
It's crazy. And think about some of this stuff that's been chiseled out with, I mean, they didn't have laser cutting tools. I mean, you look at the detail on some of these statues and things that have been carved. I mean, holy smokes, man.
You can't fit a razor blade in between those stones.
Yes.
Yeah, how do you cut a stone that big perfectly straight to fit right next to the next stone perfectly straight?
Yeah, I got a really up-to-date tile cutter, and I can't do that.
It's amazing. And that's just one of many, many things out there that we have the same questions about.
Boggle the mind, you know.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't write off Sasquatch either. I mean,
that's what I love about this podcast, and we do this every Tuesday night. Like we get sideways sometimes, and
I love it, man. I could, as y'all can tell, I could talk just about anything for days. I mean, fishing, life, where you want to go.
I mean,
let's go. You know, let's talk. You know, so
I love it.
It's all interesting. We got a winner. JP, get a hold of me. If you didn't know, Chris, we do. As soon as I said something about Sasquatch, everybody on here guesses a number between 1 and 200, and whoever guessed the number, which was 111, gets a $25 Baitworks gift card. So that's where that came from. I just kind of threw that in there. It's just a fun way. I mean, everybody likes Sasquatch, and who knows? Maybe every once in a while, we have had. Matt Pangrack had a good Sasquatch story. Matt Steffens has been on here. He's got a really good Sasquatch story.
He hates telling it though.
Yeah, but it's amazing. Dion Hibden, actually, his son Peyton was fishing a creek arm on Kentucky Lake way south, and he got way back in there to where his boat was actually almost rubbing one side of the creek or the other. And he heard some craziness back there, and he got out of there. That was another story. Bull Shoals area, actually, Cody Huff said he was coming back from a night tournament on Bull Shoals at like 2 a.m. and saw something go across the highway and step over a guardrail. So that's 4 people that have actually, had some somewhat credible. Well, some of them are definitely credible. That's Stefan's story. If you haven't heard that, I did a little short video where all 4 of those stories are in a video, kind of cropped down. But his stories, it's pretty spooky, man. It's like
a little bit like, oh boy, a little more real than I was planning.
Yeah, it's hard to deny Stefan's story for sure. And Panger's got a pretty good one too. So
the worst one, Gabe, you talk about. Gabe got me hooked on these. It's Sasquatch Chronicles. It's a podcast that you can put on, and don't ever listen to it at 4 a.m. on the way to the ramp in the mornings when you're gonna be the only one standing in the parking lot. I'm a grown ass man, but you watch me keep every light on the boat.
Yeah, it'll freak you out.
Yeah, you start going. Oh, I was getting ready to say I listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube out here, and I start. It gets late at night building spinnerbaits. Now we need to move on to some music or something because your brain starts going out there on you.
Oh yeah. Daylight, I can listen to anything you want me to listen to, but you start listening to it after dark, and it's.
Oh, what? Yeah, it'd be lucky if you can make it from here to the house, and that's 20 feet,
Yep. I just have to walk upstairs, and sometimes you turn off the lights in the basement. You never know what's going to jump out around the corner and get you.
Like, oh, I love it, man.
Yeah. JP, you can hit me up on Facebook. at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty. And then on Instagram, 10 Horse Monty 6, or I just left the my email right there. You can have whatever works for you. Hit me up and I'll get you a code for a $25 Baitworks gift card. And everybody that's on here, if you're not familiar with Baitworks, they've been working with this live stream for several years. They're down in Springfield, Missouri. They have a box store. It's not mom and pop, but it's a box store. You can actually physically walk in there and spend a couple $100 real easy, but they also have an online presence. So go to baitworks.com. You can check out their online store, their Bargain Cove. We've talked about this before, but they have a bunch of really good deals on really good stuff in that Bargain Cove. It's just a discount section, but it's not stuff you it's top end stuff. It's good quality stuff. It's things that you would pay full price for, but a lot of times these stores, they buy in surplus, and if they've got an overabundance of stuff, they may try to clear some of it out. It's not because it's not good stuff. It's just they got overstock in it, and I think that's what you'll find if you go to that Bargain Cove. They got a bunch of good stuff on there, so check them out. And also, scrolling across the bottom of the screen, you see use code THM10 for 10% off of Baitworks. You can use that code; it gets you 10% off of any of your orders, and it also helps support the channel too. And it lets them know that, hey, you watch the stream, you're doing business with somebody that supports fishing and supports the live stream every Tuesday night. So appreciate it if you go at least have a look. And like I said, we do this every Tuesday night, and it's always fun. Chris, we're gonna wrap it up, but man, I enjoyed it. It was great. Like I said, it was just kind of a random reach out to you the other night, or last night actually, and you fired back. And man, I'm super glad that we got to know each other, and we covered a lot of good topics. I appreciate what you're doing with your YouTube channel. Everybody on here, if you haven't checked out Chris's YouTube channel, what's the name of the channel again?
It's Aspiring Tournament Angler Chris Johnson.
Yeah, go check it out. He's he's talking some good stuff, just some common sense, some motivational stuff, and it's things that we need to hear. We need to hear more of, because everything gets saturated with nonsense. So it's good to just hear some straight talk. And I appreciate you coming on here, Chris, and hanging out with us.
Thank you, man. I love it. I appreciate you asking me, man. I've had an absolute blast. And hey, if you're ever in a spot again and you need somebody goofy to get on there, you just call me.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back
on to the next one. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah, well, I want to dive into all the stuff that you got there in the background, some of those old crankbaits. Maybe we'll have you back on before long, and we'll
dig into some old lures and some old ways and how some things came to be and why it's the way it is now.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
We will definitely do that again. So that's it. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. And like I said, next Tuesday, 8 o'clock, we'll have somebody else on here and we'll do it again. So till next time.